Chapter 8:28. Victor didn't give an answer to Riley's question. However, Riley made a response to Victor's suggestion that the workers should pay attention to their rest after careful consideration. The workers on the construction site didn't need to work under the hottest sun. Now, Riley would give them an extra 2 hours of lunch break at noon every day, so that they could get enough rest and avoid the hottest part of the day. However, this move wasn't welcomed by the workers. Instead, it was opposed by many people. The reason for the workers' objection was simple. Because according to the normal rules, since the working hours were reduced, the corresponding salary would be reduced. Originally, although the workers were tired, they could get a high salary of at least 25 gold coins a month, which was much higher than the workers at other construction sites of the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce. This was because in order to complete the project as soon as possible, New Flyer gave a high price to the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce, which made the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce's budget very sufficient. Secondly, the work here was really hard. If the workers weren't paid enough, of course, not many of them would be willing to accept it. But since the workers accepted the job, they were originally here for the high salary. Although they could have more rest time now, it was meaningless to reduce their salary. However, under Riley's enforcement, the workers' objection couldn't really become a reality. They could only accept the arrangement. Fortunately, even if they had 2 more hours of rest at noon, their salary was only reduced from 25 gold coins to 22 gold coins a month, which was still very high. The workers didn't resist. However, the workers became obedient, but the doubts in Riley's heart grew stronger and stronger. Victor's words before had been lingering in his mind, and he couldn't get rid of them. It was hard to say whether the Magic Industry Academy could continue to be built. What was going on? This question was finally answered a week after Victor left. It was a hot day as usual. At noon, Riley asked the workers to stop their work. After making some arrangements, he found a shady place to have a good sleep after lunch. But just as he was lying on the cold chair and his body hadn't completely relaxed, he heard the noise of tires rolling over stones in the distance. Looking over, he found 3 magic sedans quickly driving over from the distance. Riley glanced at it and frowned slightly. If he wasn't wrong, the pure white magic sedan in front should be Su Yi's personal magic sedan. This meant that Su Yi had personally come this time? Riley stood up and walked over, feeling puzzled. What was Su Yi doing here in the middle of the day? Moreover, there were 3 magic sedans and a medium-sized passenger magic car behind them. This lineup really wasn't small. After a while, the 4 cars stopped outside the construction site and Su Yi came out of the first magic sedan. The one who came out of the first magic sedan with him was a man who looked rather old. He was wearing a purple robe in this hot weather, tightly wrapping himself up. Based on the style of his robe, this man should be an old magician. The one who also came out of the first magic sedan was Victor, the manager of the New Flyer, as well as another magician. As for the 2 magic sedans and the medium-sized passenger magic car, there were also large amounts of magicians wearing different kinds of magic robes. There were only a few workers from the New Flyer among them. Chairman Su, you are. Riley came forward with a doubtful look. Su Yi revealed a faint smile and gave an introduction to the old magician beside him. Sir Alex Ferguson, this is the manager of the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce, Riley. Look, this large area is the responsibility of the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce, and it's already starting to take shape. The old magician called Sir Alex Ferguson looked around and nodded, as a trace of surprise appeared in his eyes. To think that such a large area could be turned into such a state in less than 2 months. Manager Riley, your Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce really is amazing. Hearing Su Yi introduce this old magician as a great magician, Riley was surprised. Hearing his praise, he quickly gave a slight bow and said with a respectful smile, "Being able to receive the praise of your Excellency Great Magician, it is our Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce's honor." Sir Alex Ferguson gave an unsound before turning to look at the other magicians who were being led around the construction site by the other workers from the new flyer. He asked Sui, Chairman Su, after this Magic Machine Industry Academy is finished, how many students can it take? The first batch will take in 3,000. When everything is ready, I think that this academy will be able to take in over 10,000 students. Oh? 10,000? That really is a large amount. Sir Alex Ferguson gave a soft laugh. But Chairman Su, before building this academy, why didn't you give me a heads up? Manager Riley on the side raised a brow and looked at Great Magician Ferguson with a strange gaze. He was very curious. Why would New Flyer need to give you a heads up when building an academy? Even if you are a great magician, Sui himself is also a great magician, so he isn't worse than anyone else. Besides, New Flyer has 2 other great magicians, and also has teacher Carmilla, who is one of the top magicians on the continent. Why would they need to consider your opinion? However, Sir Alex Ferguson said this as if it was only natural. Sui unexpectedly didn't refute him. Instead, he smiled and said, "This is my negligence. But I also hope that I can prepare in advance so as to not waste time. After all, if headquarters agrees with my plan, there will be a lot of work to be done. It's better to prepare early." Sir Alex Ferguson snorted softly. "But Chairman Su, don't you think it's a bit too much to do this without the approval of headquarters?" Manager Riley was even more surprised. He wondered where this Sir Alex Ferguson came from. How dare he speak to Chairman Su in such a tone? However, Sui didn't mind Sir Alex Ferguson's tone at all. Instead, he continued to smile and patiently said, "So, didn't I lead you here as soon as possible? You see, as long as this academy is built, we can immediately recruit 3,000 low-level magicians to study in the academy. Then, after 2 years of study or 4 to 5 years of study, they can enter New Flyer or other magic machine companies to work. This will perfectly solve their livelihood problems." I don't deny this. But Chairman Su, I still have to say that you can't open this school without the approval of headquarters. That definitely won't do. What are you going to do if the headquarters council doesn't approve it? Sui gave a sigh, but he still said with a smile, "I think that the elders at the headquarters will understand my intentions and won't make it hard for me, right?" "That's not necessarily true." Sir Alex Ferguson snorted coldly. He flung his sleeves and left Sui behind. He also walked to the construction site and joined the other magicians who were visiting. Seeing him walk away, Manager Riley frowned and approached Sui. "Chairman Su, what's going on? Where did this Sir Alex Ferguson come from? Victor said that this academy might not be able to be built. Is it related to the headquarters you were talking about?" Sui squinted his eyes and glanced at Sir Alex Ferguson in the distance. He said in a deep voice, "They are representatives sent by the Magicians' Union headquarters. Although they can't control this Magic Machine Industry Academy in theory, if they don't agree, I'm afraid there will be trouble even if it is built." Magicians' Union headquarters? Manager Riley looked at Sir Alex Ferguson in surprise. He thought that it was no wonder this old magician's attitude was so condescending. However, after thinking about it, Manager Riley felt a little unhappy. He couldn't help but snort coldly. "Chairman Su, even if he is a representative of the Magicians' Union headquarters, he has no right to tell New Flyer what to do. You can build it yourself. No wonder the Magicians' Union headquarters came here to tear it down." "They definitely won't tear it down. But it is very likely that they will issue a ban on all magicians through the Sorcerers' Union and not allow them to study in this academy. If that's the case, even if we build this academy, we won't be able to recruit any students. Wouldn't it be a waste of effort? They won't be so ruthless, right?" Riley widened his eyes in surprise. "If they can do such a thing, then doesn't it mean that they can even make the magicians in New Flyer stop working for you? That's much more powerful than this." "No, they won't do such a stupid thing. Even if I said that low-level magicians shouldn't be allowed to study in this academy, they won't do it openly. But the Sorcerers' Union's influence on the magicians of the continent is too great. I have to be careful. Sui shook his head and explained. That's true. Manager Riley muttered to himself for a moment and felt a headache coming on. New Flyer was built on the foundation of magicians. The core of the Chamber of Commerce was those magicians. If they really offended the Sorcerers' Union and caused the Sorcerers' Union to target them, then their days would be very difficult. Then, Chairman Sue, what do you plan to do? I've been listening to Sir Alex Ferguson talk for a long time, but I haven't heard him mention any specific requests. Su Yi's lips curled into a mocking smile. If they were so eager to reveal their intentions, then I wouldn't be so worried. Of course, does he think that if he doesn't say anything, I won't know what they want? Chapter 829. What did the Magicians' Union headquarters want? This was the so-called world is filled with people for benefits, and the world is filled with people for benefits. When Sir Alex Ferguson represented the Sorcerers' Guild last time, his performance was considered normal. He only represented the Magicians' Union headquarters to have New Flyer help solve the livelihood problem of the low-level magicians, so he was quite polite. However, this time he represented the Sorcerers' Guild again, but he suddenly made it hard for Sui and New Flyer. Of course he had other plans. After visiting the Magic Machine Industry School, Sui deliberately kept Sir Alex Ferguson in suspense for a few days before hinting to Sir Alex Ferguson that New Flyer was willing to pay a price for the approval of the Magicians' Union headquarters. So Sir Alex Ferguson's expression instantly changed, and he directly gave Sui a cooperation plan that was discussed by the Magicians' Union headquarters. This cooperation plan seemed to be a step further than the one Sui proposed before. Specifically speaking, the Magicians' Union headquarters would first recognize New Flyer as their partner, and then the main project would be the placement of the low-level magicians. This was similar to the cooperation they discussed before, but the difference was in the follow-up. In this plan, the Sorcerers' Guild proposed that since New Flyer relied on the magic machine industry to solve the livelihood problem of the low-level magicians, the Magicians' Union headquarters had to study and understand the magic machine industry led by the Xinfei Chamber of Commerce for the sake of these low-level magicians. The meaning seemed very noble on the surface, but it was actually asking New Flyer to share the magic machine technology with the Magicians' Union headquarters, letting the Magicians' Union headquarters research it and make sure that it wouldn't harm the low-level magicians. Then you agreed? Seveny looked at Sui with wide eyes. Sir Alex Ferguson had already left the Principality of Constantine and returned to the Magicians' Union headquarters for a week. Sui came to Anvilmar City to discuss matters with Seveny and mentioned this matter. How could that be possible? Sui shook his head and gave a cold laugh. The Magicians' Union headquarters actually wants all of our magic machine technology. I wouldn't agree unless I was crazy. You didn't agree? Then why did I hear that if nothing unexpected happened, the Magicians' Union headquarters would announce that New Flyer would be their partner next month? Seveny asked in a confused voice. This is a negotiation, the Magicians' Union headquarters, so I'm just haggling over the price. Sui spread out his hands as he said with a smile. They want all the magic machine technology, so of course this is a sky-high price. They also know this, so I just casually haggled over the price and they agreed. Oh. Then how did you haggle? Seveny revealed an interested look. It's nothing. I agreed to share all the magic machine technology our company has with the Magicians' Union headquarters, but there was no time limit. Seveny was surprised before giving a laugh. Good Sui, you really are sly. But I don't believe that the people of the Magicians' Union headquarters can't see that you're deliberately stalling for time. They do know this, but I promised them that I would transfer at least one piece of our company's technology to the Magicians' Union headquarters each year. Moreover, I made a list of our company's technology for them to choose from, so they accepted it without any hesitation. One piece of technology each year? Seveni's large eyes looked over and she couldn't help smiling as she said, "Hey, Sue, if my estimates aren't wrong, your new flyer currently has over 200 pieces of technology, right? Could it be that the Magicians Union headquarters is planning on spending 200 years to get all this technology from you?" No, there are over 400 pieces of technology, so accurately speaking, it will take over 400 years. Sue said with a faint smile. Then it's strange. Since it's like this, why did the Magicians Union headquarters agree to your proposal? Seveni asked in a curious voice. First, they don't understand what the magic machine industry is at all. Second, they don't know how fast the magic machine industry is developing. 400 years. When that time comes, our company's technology will already be discarded in history museums. We won't be able to use it at all. I don't know what use they have for it. Seveni let out a soft sigh and shook her head. Actually, you can't blame them. If I didn't already know you, I wouldn't have known that the magic machine industry would develop this quickly. Look, it's only been 8 years since your new flyer appeared, but our Lampari kingdom has already undergone an earth-shattering change. I didn't believe it when you said that the magic machine industry could change the signs, but now I firmly believe it. In my opinion, it's far from enough, Sue said with a serious look. Right now, we still haven't formed a complete magic machine industry system. There are many important parts missing. For example, we still haven't solved the most important part of training people, and we still haven't used our resources to the best of our ability. You also said it before, this isn't something that can be rushed, right? Seveni said with a smile. Speaking of this, what is the first piece of technology that the Magicians Union headquarters asked you to share? Is it the magic airship? I feel that this thing should represent the highest level of technology your company has, so they should care about it the most. No, you've guessed wrong. They chose the technology related to the magic air conditioner first. Magic air conditioner? Seveni was stunned. This technology isn't that high, so why are they interested in this? You still haven't noticed? They aren't actually interested in the magic machine technology, nor are they interested in helping low-grade magicians grasp the magic machine technology. The reason why they chose the magic air conditioner is only for one reason, which is gold coins. Seveni was a bit surprised before giving a nod after thinking for a bit. Alright, I understand. It seems like even these great magicians can't escape the shackles of benefits. This isn't strange. Sue gave a shrug. Seveni gave a shrug. If they really were perfect and noble, only thinking about the low-grade magicians, it would be a headache for me. But since they want benefits, it's much simpler. I give them benefits and I take what I need from them. Everyone takes what they need, isn't this very good? Seveni rolled her eyes at Sue. You are the biggest profiteer, I've never doubted you. Speak, what benefits did you get from the Magicians Union headquarters this time? It can't be just the benefits of being a partner company of the Magicians Union headquarters, right? Hey, you can't look down on this name. With this name, it'll be much easier for our company to recruit magicians in the future. Think about it, we are a partner company of the Magicians Union headquarters. How glorious is that? Compared to those arrogant magicians, they won't be as resistant to working for our company as before. You say it like those magicians are against working for your company. Seveni couldn't help muttering. Over half of the magicians in our Lampari kingdom want to work for your new flyer. What are you not satisfied with? That is just the Lampari kingdom and the surrounding countries. My goal is all the magicians in the signs. Look, we went to the Malur Empire to build a factory, and it's already been 3 months. But we still haven't recruited a single magician, so I'm having a headache over this matter. If the Magicians Union headquarters announces that we are a partner company, I can put up this large sign and perhaps this problem can be solved. I hope it's like this. Seveni paused before looking at Sue before continuing. speaking of the Mal-Empire. Sui, don't you have anything to say to me? Sui revealed a faint smile. He took out a document from his bag and handed it over with both hands. Come, Your Majesty, this is our company's plan to invest in the Mala Empire with the Lampari Kingdom. Please take a look. This is more like it. Seveni gave a chuckle before taking the plan and carefully reading it. After reading it, Seveni thought for a bit before saying with a frown, "There is a problem. Your plan is for our Lampari Kingdom to organize an official company to invest in the Mala Empire, but our Lampari Kingdom and the Mala Empire didn't have a close relationship before. Are you certain the Mala Empire is willing to accept this? This is the result of my discussion with the Marquis of Southgard. Although the Marquis of Southgard can't completely represent the Mala Empire, he can represent the nobles of the Mala Empire led by him. The Marquis of Southgard welcomes this plan very much, so you don't need to worry." Sui was silent for a bit before continuing with a smile. "Actually, I'll say something you might not like to hear. Compared to the Mala Empire, the Lampari Kingdom is too weak, so the Mala Empire doesn't put the Lampari Kingdom in their eyes at all, so naturally they don't care if you invest or not. Anyway, to them, it doesn't affect anything." Seveni wasn't angry at all, rather she said with a smile, "This means that this is a private cooperation between our Lampari Kingdom and the Marquis of Southgard? How can we guarantee that the Mala Empire won't interfere in the future? This will depend on the future development. To give an example, Seveni, if you were asked to chase our new flyer out of the Lampari Kingdom, would you do it?" Sui looked into Seveni's eyes as he asked this with a serious look. Seveni looked at Sui and shook her head with a bitter smile. "Of course not. This isn't related to whether I'm willing or not, rather. I don't dare." Chapter 830. Mendes was holding a cup of blueberry-flavored moon shadow drink that he had just taken out of the magic refrigerator as he walked out the door of his shop. When he walked out, the hot sun shined down and his body that had been cooled by the magic air conditioner was covered in sweat. "This damn weather!" Mendes couldn't help muttering. He quickly walked forward and came to the shade of the trees on the side of the road. He followed the rows of trees to another open shop that wasn't far away. The noon sun was very hot and the temperature was very high. There wasn't a single person on the road at this time, and other than the sounds of cicadas that came from the trees, this normally lively street was very quiet. When Mendes reached the door of the shop, he heard the tinkling sounds that came from inside. Mendes stepped into the shop and looked inside before shaking his head and saying in a loud voice, "I say, Ryan, it's fine if you don't take a nap at noon, but why are you working on these old fellows again?" Hearing the sound, the owner of the shop, Leon, turned around and saw that it was Mendes. He laughed and put down the red soldering iron in his hand, casually throwing it into the cold, soaking solution. Immediately, a cloud of thick steam burst out and filled the room. Ryan and Mendes were blacksmiths in Kramer City before, making iron for a living their entire lives. Their lives should have continued like this, but thinking of the appearance of the new flyer a few years ago, the magic machines had replaced all the work in the blacksmith shop, making the two of them unemployed. It was a good thing that the two of them were smart people. After learning that the new flyer was promoting a small company support plan in Banta City, they took the initiative to find the new flyer. With the support of the new flyer, they bought several magic machines from the new flyer and smoothly opened 2 small component factories in Kramer City. After several years of development, their 2 component factories had become the top magic machine component suppliers in Kramer City. They controlled over 40% of the component market in Kramer City. The current them, compared to when they were guarding the blacksmith shop, not only had their income increased by over 100 times, their work was much easier compared to before. Scenes like Ryan, who had to work so hard in the middle of the day, only existed in their distant memories. Therefore, not only were the two dissatisfied with New Flyer for destroying their blacksmith shop's business, but they were also very grateful to New Flyer from the bottom of their hearts. I was bored, so I wanted to see if my skills had deteriorated. Ryan casually opened the magic refrigerator to the side and took out a bottle of cold ale, signaling it to Mendes. Mendes waved his hand and raised the cold drink in his hand. Ryan knew the habits of his old friend, so he didn't say anything else. After closing the door to the magic refrigerator, he took the remote control and pressed it. The magic air conditioner on the wall let out a ding sound and a cool breeze came from it. It didn't take long for the room that was filled with heat from his forging to become a comfortable and cool environment. Mendes looked up at the magic air conditioner on the wall and shook his head as he said with a sigh, "Your Shinfei brand magic air conditioner is still much better. My shop's Amphira magic air conditioner can't compare to yours. Who told you to not listen to my advice and buy this Amphira magic air conditioner? It's cheap, but why did you buy it if it's not useful?" Ryan said with a soft snort. "It's not completely useless, it's just not as easy to use as the Shinfei brand magic air conditioner." Mendes gave a bitter laugh. "When I bought it, it was because the outer shell of the Amphira magic air conditioner was made by our shop, so I thought that it would be good to support it." "Che, it's something you use, how could you care that much? Our shop has also received orders from the Zan's Chamber of Commerce for the base of the magic kettle, but do you think I have a magic kettle from the Zan's Chamber of Commerce at home? You are a fanatical supporter of the new flyer, you think I don't know?" Mendes rolled his eyes at Ryan. After hesitating a bit, he sat up a bit and moved closer to Ryan. "I say, Ryan, you support the new flyer this much. When the new flyer called the other companies to invest in the Mala Empire, why didn't you go with them?" Ryan looked at Mendes with a surprised look. "Are you joking? Why don't you see what kind of fellows went with the new flyer before? The weakest among them were countless times stronger than small merchants like us. Why would I go with them? To eat dust? Coo. I didn't mean that. Only..." Mendes looked out the door and lowered his voice. "This time Her Majesty and the Kingdom's Parliament have jointly announced that they want to cooperate with the Mala Empire's Marquis of Southgard. They are calling on our Lampari Kingdom's large companies to seize this chance to invest in the Mala Empire. Are you interested? Are you crazy?" Clayan reached out and touched Mendes' forehead. "What nonsense are you saying if you don't have a fever? Her Majesty and the Kingdom's Parliament are calling on the large companies. What does it have to do with small characters like us?" Mendes snappily pushed Ryan's hand away and reprimanded, "I'm not crazy. Although we are small characters, this isn't related to investing in the Mala Empire. Didn't you read the Lampari Weekly? The new flyer and the first batch of companies have already built a production base on the Marquis of Southgard's territory. As long as we go over, we can quickly begin production. It isn't as hard as you think." Ryan was stunned as he looked at Mendes with knitted brows. "You're serious? Nonsense. Otherwise, why would I come to look for you instead of taking a comfortable nap at home?" Seeing that Mendes was serious, Ryan put down the wine bottle in his hand and began to think. After a while, he gave a slight nod. "Mendes, I admit that this is a very good idea. But don't you think it's too risky? We're not familiar with that place, so it'll be hard to deal with anything that happens. Moreover, not to mention the new flyer, we're countless times weaker than any of the companies we went to before, so what can we do? Take risks?" Mendes sneered from his nostrils. Mendes gave a snort. "Ryan, have you become dull after living a peaceful life for a few years? If you want to talk about risks, wasn't it risky enough for us to go to Banta City to find the new flyer? But look at how we're doing now. Let me tell you, the new flyer's chairman Sue is completely right. This world will keep changing, and if you don't take risks, you'll be eliminated." Clayan remained silent. Although he had been friends with Mendes for many years, their personalities were completely different. Mendes was very flamboyant, being willing to bravely try new things and being adventurous. Ryan was very calm, being willing to walk down the current path. When the two of them came to the new flyer to join the small company support plan, it was Mendes who encouraged him. Now that Mendes was looking for him to invest in the Malor Empire, he also thought that it was a very big risk. But in his heart, he felt that this was a very good idea. The Malor Empire was much bigger than the Lampari Kingdom, so whether it was the market or the opportunities, it far surpassed them. If they could grasp this opportunity, their future development would be countless times better than staying in a small Kramer city. Seeing the change in Ryan's expression, Mendes knew that he was a bit moved, so he immediately tried to persuade him. Look, the first batch of companies that entered the Mala Empire with the new flyer were either comprehensive companies or specialized companies like the Cantona Chamber of Commerce that specialized in agricultural magic machines. There was only the Ireland Chamber of Commerce that processed components. You wouldn't think that just the Ireland Chamber of Commerce could provide enough components for all those companies, right? And to have those companies come all the way here to buy components, that clearly isn't reasonable, right? Ryan couldn't help nodding. Then your meaning is, if we go over now, we can provide components for those companies that the Ireland Chamber of Commerce can't satisfy? But there aren't many kinds of components that we can process right now. This isn't a big problem. As long as we can be a step ahead, we can have the advantage. Those magic machine companies are used to using the components we provide, so they won't buy components from other companies. Then again, we aren't doing bad. Didn't the engineers of the new flyer give us a second-grade evaluation before? Let me think about it. Ryan lowered his head and fell into deep thought again. Mendes was silent as he looked at him with an expectant gaze. Ryan's cautious personality was a very good compliment to him, so the two of them had worked together to overcome many difficulties over the years. This decision to go to the Mala Empire was a very risky one for Mendes, so he hoped that Ryan could go with him. Other than wanting an old friend to accompany him, it was also because Ryan could help him solve many problems. When Mendes was patiently waiting for Ryan to make his decision, there was suddenly the sound of brakes coming from outside the door. The two were stunned as they looked outside at the same time. If they didn't hear wrong, this should be the sound of a magic sedan suddenly braking. It was completely different from the transport magic cars that they were used to hearing, and to be able to ride in a magic sedan, even in the Lampari Kingdom where magic sedans had already spread, they definitely weren't normal people. Only, who would suddenly come here in the middle of the day? A thin figure walked through the door with a smile on his face. Looking over the two of them, he reached out his hand and said with a smile, "I am the Vice Chairman of the Ireland Chamber of Commerce. May I ask which one is Chairman Ryan?" Mendes and Ryan looked at each other in blank dismay. Chapter 831. You want to integrate the component processing industry? Sui looked at Freeman in surprise, but he found it a bit funny after thinking about it. Hey Freeman, this definitely isn't something you thought of, right? Freeman scratched his head and gave a simple and honest smile. This term was indeed taught to me by Kovac, but he also learned it from the book, The Foundation of the Magic Industry System, that you published previously. Of course, this idea was something I thought of myself, I just discussed it with Kovac and the others. Sui looked at this fellow who was just a simple and honest farmer when he first met him. He thought that even he could think of the idea of integration. Now, it really made people sigh at the changes time had on people. Come, let's hear it. What are you thinking? Freeman sat down in the chair Sui pointed at and calmed himself down before continuing. It's like this. Chairman Su, do you still remember the screw bolts we gave your new flyer before? Sui revealed a smile. I really don't remember, I haven't meddled in these matters in a long time. What? Is there a problem? No, there's no problem, it's very good. However, when we were supplying the same batch of goods to another chamber of commerce, we encountered some problems. What problem? This. Chairman Su, didn't your new flyer set a standard for screw bolts before? There were 13 different types that were suitable for different magic machines. Our Ireland Chamber of Commerce has strictly followed this standard, and it was the same for the previous batch. It was verified when we gave it to your company. That's right. And then? There was a problem when you gave the same batch of goods to another company? Freeman didn't get to the main point after a while, so Sue couldn't help asking. Freeman gave a sigh and helplessly spread his hands as he replied, "That's right, when the screw bolts were given to that company, they didn't match their magic fans and magic air conditioners, so they returned all the goods to us. We lost several thousand gold coins because of this." Why didn't it match? Sue was a bit curious. Because the screw bolts on their magic fans and magic air conditioners were different from ours, so it didn't match. That's not right. Sue knit his brows. Our new flyer has clear standards for the magic fans and magic air conditioners, so why is this company different? I secretly asked the people of their company about this. The reason is that when their company first made the magic fans, they used the screw bolts from another company. That company's screw bolts didn't match the standards, but they were cheaper than our company's screw bolts. Then when they made their magic fans, they changed their molds to match that company's screw bolt standards, but they didn't match our company's bolt. That means, this is a chain reaction? Sue couldn't help shaking his head. Flyer's the first flyer, TS. I never thought that it couldn't be avoided in the end. After that, I went to the company that supplied them with screw bolts and found that there were problems with the magic thread rolling machines they used to produce screw bolt. The skills of the workers under them, they weren't good enough. The most important thing was that they didn't understand the standards your new flyer gave them, so they didn't even know what the results were. Freeman continued. Speaking of this, it's our new flyer's problem with not promoting the standards enough. It seems like we need to pay attention to this problem in the future, Sue said in a thoughtful voice. Freeman quickly waved his hand. No, Chairman Sue, I don't have any intentions of blaming you and your new flyer. I'm just thinking that since there's such a problem, shouldn't we find a way to unify all the components processing companies? Everyone should try to use the same standards to do things. This way we can avoid similar situations and reduce losses. This idea isn't bad. Freeman, it's rare for you to think of this. I really have a new level of respect for you. Sue gave a nod of praise. Then what are you planning to do? Freeman rubbed his hands and said in an embarrassed voice, So I'm here to ask for your support. Speak, if I can help you, I will consider it. Chairman Sue, I hope that, if you have time, can you write a book on the standards of various components? That is to say, you need to clearly define the standards, and the most important thing is for people like us to find the basis at any time. This isn't a problem. Actually, I'm working on this right now. But the standards need to be approved by enough people, so it can't be rushed. No, you don't need to worry that much at all. With your and the new flyer's status, you don't need others to approve of you. As long as you clearly define the standards, I'm sure no one will dare to go against it. For example, the matter I mentioned just now. If there was such a standard book, I could have used it to cause trouble for that Chamber of Commerce. I could have said that they didn't follow the standards and it had nothing to do with our Ireland Chamber of Commerce. Sue laughed. Freeman had said all this, but he was still thinking about his Ireland Chamber of Commerce. Of course, there was nothing wrong with this, and what he said made a lot of sense. Sue wasn't willing to forcefully implement the standards before because he wanted to subtly influence everyone to get used to the various standards. But now it seemed that the effects of this weren't as good as Sue thought. If he really did, as Freeman said, and forcefully implemented the standards, it might save him a lot of trouble. Then the industry integration you mentioned just now was just for me to help you come up with a component industry standard? Sue asked again. No, it's not just that. I've thought about it. Our Ireland Chamber of Commerce should be the largest component processing company, so we should set an example. Freeman paused and forcefully clenched his fist, as if he was encouraging himself. So I've decided that we should help the other component processing companies. For example, the screw bolt company I mentioned just now. I've already discussed this with them. I'll send some of our company's skilled workers to help them adjust the magic thread rolling machine and train their skilled workers, so that the screw bolts they produce can meet the standards, while also ensuring that the quality is more stable. Sue-E was a bit shocked this time. Freeman, after not seeing you for a while, I never thought that you would be this magnanimous. This really has surpassed my expectations. It's all because of Chairman Sue's usual teachings. Freeman said with a laugh. But it's not a problem to ally with one company, but it will be very difficult to ally with the other companies. So Chairman Sue, I hope that your new flyer can give our Ireland Chamber of Commerce a special certification, recognizing our Ireland Chamber of Commerce's component processing standard. That way, the other companies will be convinced by us, and it'll be easier for us to discuss with them. Is it really just like this? Sue-E narrowed his eyes as he looked at Freeman. He thought that this fellow had always been simple and honest, but he never thought that his ambition would be this small. If he really agreed to his request and made the Ireland Chamber of Commerce the new flyer's component processing company, then in this environment where the new flyer was the only authority in the magic machine industry, it was equal to the Ireland Chamber of Commerce having the highest position in the component processing industry. The benefits of this to the Ireland Chamber of Commerce were self-evident. But Sue-E didn't dislike Freeman's ambition. Regarding Freeman's idea of integrating the component processing industry, he agreed from the bottom of his heart and was very supportive. Because just like the example Freeman had just given, if there was a clear and unified standard, and there was an authority in the industry, then it would save a lot of wasted labor and resources. It would be a great help to the development of the component processing industry. The current magic machine industry was far from being limited to the new flyer alone. Gradually, the embryonic form of an industrial system was appearing. New Flyer couldn't take care of everything, so giving a part of it to other companies was an inevitable choice. Now that Freeman represented the Ireland Chamber of Commerce to propose this idea, it was in line with Sue-E's expectations. After a moment of silence, Sue-E nodded and said, "Okay, Freeman, I agree with your idea in principle. But whether I agree or not will have to wait for us to inspect your company. You have to be mentally prepared. I have very strict requirements in this area. If your Ireland Chamber of Commerce can't meet my requirements, then no matter how good our relationship is, there will be no mercy." Hearing Sue-E agree, Freeman immediately stood up with a face full of excitement. He forcefully beat his chest and saluted to Sue-E, loudly saying, "Chairman Sue, please be at ease. Our Ireland Chamber of Commerce has already made preparations. We can wait for your inspection and certification at any time." Sue-E couldn't help but smile. Freeman's posture was as if he was reporting to his superior. But from his words, it could be heard that he had this idea for a long time. Perhaps the Ireland Chamber of Commerce had already made preparations. Chapter 832. 10 minutes later, a satisfied Freeman left Sue-E's office in the Frestec Chamber of Commerce's main building. Seeing Freeman come down through the window and get into his pure gold magic sedan with a smile as he quickly drove off, Sue-E revealed a smile. He turned around and fell into deep thought. Actually, when it came to integrating industries, it wasn't just Freeman who was considering this. It was also a problem that Sue-E and the high-level members of New Flyer had been seriously considering. Since it was founded, the Frestec Chamber of Commerce had already been around for 8 years. It had gone from being a small company that didn't stand out in Banta City to being an important company in the southwest corner of the Signs continent. The current New Flyer had many industries under its name. Although it was mainly focused on the magic machine industry, it was also involved in agriculture, infrastructure, entertainment, and other industries, so it could be considered a giant. Although it had many industries with high profit margins, which was clearly a good thing, because there were too many industries, the internal management of New Flyer had become a bit complicated. As the CEO, Kennard had proposed to Sue 2 months ago that the various industries under New Flyer should be integrated. After 2 months of discussions, it had been decided and they had begun implementing it. The New Flyer, after being integrated, would be divided into 2 parts. One would be the main magic machine industry and the other would be the other industries. The magic machine industry was divided into household magic machines, agricultural magic machines, construction magic machines, basic industries, and military magic machines. Among them, if one were to talk about benefits, the household magic machines were the most important. In just 7 months of this year, New Flyer had earned over 4 million gold coins from selling various household magic machines. Moreover, it was the middle of summer, so it was the peak season for magic fans, magic air conditioners, magic freezers, and other household magic machines. If they waited until summer was over, this profit would easily surpass 5 million gold coins. As for the agricultural magic machines, although the Lampari Kingdom, the Kingdom of Ruhr, and the other countries had already bought large amounts of agricultural magic machines and were reaching saturation, because of the Sac Kingdom joining this year, there was also growth. Their profits for the first half of the year were over 2 million gold coins. As for the second half of the year, it would depend on the promotion of the Malar Empire. If everything went well, it would be possible to obtain a large number of orders for agricultural magic machines from the Marquis of Southgard and other nobles in the Mala Empire. The construction magic machines, on the other hand, were not a big deal. After all, only the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce was using them in large quantities. The Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce had already purchased a large number of construction magic machines, so the demand was not high. But recently, other construction and mining companies have started to have a demand for construction magic machines, so it was worth looking forward to. As for the basic industry, it was mainly focused on steel and non-ferrous metal smelting. This had developed quickly in the past few years, especially after New Flyer and the Lampari Kingdom built 3 large-scale steel mills and a non-ferrous metal smelting factory. In the first half of the year, New Flyer's steel output had broken 1.5 million tons and their non-ferrous metal output had broken 300,000 tons. Although this number wasn't worth mentioning compared to Earth's output of over 10 million, for New Flyer, this was a major breakthrough. 2/3 of the steel and non-ferrous metals produced were used by New Flyer and the other third were sold to other companies, earning a large profit of over 3 million gold coins. Adding these parts together, this meant that putting aside the military magic machines, New Flyer had earned a shocking profit of over 12 million gold coins from the magic machine industry in the first half of the year. Adding in the fertilizer, fruit products, and drinks outside of the magic machine industry, as well as the profits from the sea transport industry, the Frestec Chamber of Commerce's profits in the first half of this year easily broke 15 million gold coins. If nothing unexpected happened after this year's accounting, New Flyer's profit would break 30 million gold coins, surpassing last year's and reaching a new high. The only variable was the military magic machines. While he was thinking about this, a soft knock on the door woke Sui up. "Come in." The door to the office was pushed open and a beautiful female elf walked in. "Sir Chairman, the guests from the Canla Empire have arrived." Seeing the female elf bow to him with a respectful expression that had a trace of expectation and curiosity, Sui couldn't help giving a bitter smile. Twisty had already been here for a month, and he was still not used to it. This female elf named Twisty was personally sent over by Elder Lysania after Agnes left. When Elder Lysania sent her over, she said that having Twisty stay by Su Yi's side was to learn from Su Yi about human business management. She wanted to train talents for the Moon Shadow Tribe's factories in the future. But Twisty had just turned 70 this year. According to the elf's age, she was only 16 or 17 years old for humans. She was just a little girl who hadn't reached adulthood yet. If Elder Lysania really wanted to train talents for the tribe, how could she send a little girl who hadn't reached adulthood yet? However, Sue-Yi didn't want to think about the reason behind this. Anyway, in the month that Twisty had been here, she had obediently stayed by his side. She seriously listened to Sue-Yi's orders and worked hard to complete the tasks that Sue-Yi gave her. Moreover, she worked hard to learn all kinds of new knowledge. She was just like a professional secretary for Sue-Yi. That's quite fast. Come with me to see them. Twisty replied and obediently followed behind Sue-Yi, leaving the office. The two of them went down a floor and came to the office building's reception room. They immediately saw Russell sitting in the middle of a group of people. Russell noticed Sue-Yi come in and immediately stood up, smiling as he welcomed him. Chairman Sue, long time no see. Hello Sir Russell, these are. Sue-Yi's doubtful gaze fell on the other 10 people who stood up with Russell. Oh, they are the colleagues I mentioned before who wanted to come with me to see you. There are also some representatives of companies. Come, let me introduce them. Russell pointed at a middle-aged man with a medium build and a medium appearance. He looked very ordinary, but the shrewdness in his eyes made people not dare look down on him. This is the Chimera Chamber of Commerce's branch manager in Pompeii City, Tor Autoff. Hearing Russell's introduction, Sue-Yi was taken aback. Although Russell had previously claimed that he would bring some representatives of companies near the Kanla Empire's naval station to discuss some business cooperation with New Flyer, Russell had never mentioned who he would bring. He did not expect that the first person to appear would be a representative of the Chimera Chamber of Commerce. The Chimera Chamber of Commerce was known as the largest chamber of commerce in the continent. It was known as the object of worship of all merchants. Sue-Yi was surprised and reached out to shake hands with Autoff. I did not expect that our little new flyer would be chosen by the Chimera Chamber of Commerce. I am really flattered. Autoff showed a reserved smile and reached out to touch Sue-Yi's hand before retracting it. He nodded and did not speak. Seeing his reaction, Sue-Yi was slightly startled. He could not help but frown and turn to look at Russell. Russell acted as if he did not see it at all and continued to introduce the next person to Sue-Yi. Sue-Yi was puzzled, but he could only put his doubts in his heart and smile as he made contact with the rest of the people. In addition to the Chimera Chamber of Commerce's representative, a few of the remaining people were also officers from the Kanla Empire's navy. The rest were representatives of several chambers of commerce in Pompeii City. Unlike Autoff, the representatives of these chambers of commerce were very polite to Sue-Yi and revealed that they already had a certain understanding of New Flyer. They expressed that they hoped to cooperate with New Flyer in the field of household magic machines. Sue-Yi was, of course, extremely welcoming and began a preliminary discussion with them. Through the relationship with the Marquis of Southgard, New Flyer had already laid a certain foundation in the Mala Empire. Now, if they also laid a foundation in the Kanla Empire through Russell's relationship with the merchants of Pompeii City, it would be a great boost to Sue-Yi's plan to promote the magic machine industry to the entire signs. Therefore, Sue-Yi was very active when he introduced New Flyer to them, and the representatives of the chambers of commerce were obviously prepared. The two sides had a good chat and quickly reached some preliminary verbal agreement. However, during the entire meeting, Autoff did not say a word from beginning to end. He was a complete spectator, which made Sue-Yi feel very strange. What is this guy doing here? If the Chimera Chamber of Commerce did not look at New Flyer at all, Sue-Yi would not be surprised. After all, the gap between the two sides was huge. But now that the Chimera Chamber of Commerce had sent someone, it proved that New Flyer was at least in the eyes of the Chimera Chamber of Commerce and had the intention to cooperate. Otherwise, they would not have wasted time to send someone over. But this guy didn't say a word, and his attitude was cold. Could it be that he came here unwillingly because of Luo Su's face? During the meeting, Su-yi had doubts in his heart, but it was not easy to raise them. He could not help but feel very depressed. However, after the meeting ended and the group had lunch together, Ottof unexpectedly found Su-yi in private accompanied by Russell. But as soon as he opened his mouth, Su-yi was instantly stunned. Chapter 833. Chairman Su, our Chimera Chamber of Commerce is interested in acquiring new flyer for a total price of 76 million gold coins. This is the agreement, please take a look. Su-yi was stunned when he saw the thin agreement that Ottof handed over. He first looked at Russell, who had a calm expression, and then at Ottof, who had a serious expression. Only then did he confirm that the other party was not joking. However, when he looked at the agreement in Ottof's hand, Su-yi still felt that it was ridiculous. After all this time, the reason why Ottof did not say a word during the meeting was not because he was unwilling, but because he did not need to discuss any cooperation with New Flyer. He was already buying New Flyer in full, so why would he need to discuss any cooperation? Su-yi frowned slightly. After pondering for a moment, he pushed the agreement away. I'm sorry, Manager Ottof. I don't have any plans to sell New Flyer. Ottof's expression did not change as he pushed the agreement back again. Chairman Su, you won't lose anything by taking a look at it. If you are not satisfied with the conditions, we can still negotiate. There's no need. I don't have any plans in this area. There's nothing to negotiate. Su-yi's tone was firm, but he still maintained a smile on his face. After all, the Chimera Chamber of Commerce was the largest chamber of commerce on the continent. If possible, Su-yi still hoped to cooperate with them and not offend them. Moreover, from the Chimera Chamber of Commerce's sudden intention to acquire New Flyer, it could be seen that they did not look down on New Flyer. On the contrary, they valued it very much. Otherwise, they would not have the intention to acquire it. Chairman Su, I suggest that you take a look at it. It will be beneficial for you. Ottof did not speak, but Russell did. Su-yi looked at Russell in surprise. What does the Chimera Chamber of Commerce's acquisition of the New Flyer have to do with you, the Deputy Chief of Staff of the Kanla Empire Navy? However, the Chimera Chamber of Commerce was the largest chamber of commerce on the continent, and at the same time, the largest chamber of commerce in the Kanla Empire. It was bound to have inextricable ties with the various forces within the Kanla Empire. It wasn't surprising that Russell would cooperate with the Chimera Chamber of Commerce. After hesitating for a moment, Su-yi took the agreement from Ottof. Russell and Ottof looked at each other and smiled. They sat down and patiently waited for Su-yi's response. When Su-yi was reading the agreement, he looked very focused on it, but in fact, he was very absent-minded. The New Flyer was the culmination of all his efforts and ideals. How could he sell it? Moreover, not mentioning these factors, just based on the price of 76 million gold coins that the Chimera Chamber of Commerce gave, it was impossible for Su-yi to agree. The net profit of the New Flyer this year could exceed 30 million gold coins. If nothing unexpected happened in the next few years, it would continue to grow. 76 million gold coins seemed like a lot, but in fact, it was only a number that the New Flyer could earn in 2 to 3 years. Wanting to acquire the New Flyer with such a small amount of money? Su-yi could only say that although the Chimera Chamber of Commerce saw the potential of the New Flyer, they still underestimated the strength of the New Flyer. The contents of the agreement were not out of Su-yi's expectations. The main idea was that the Chimera Chamber of Commerce hoped to acquire the New Flyer with a total price of 76 million gold coins. And these acquisition items included everything that the New Flyer currently had, including the various processing plants, research institutes, employees, and the relevant technical information of various magic machines. Simply put, the new flyer would be packaged and sold to the Chimera Chamber of Commerce, leaving Sue with his private manor in the Principality of Constantine. After skimming through the agreement, Sue could not help but sneer inwardly. The Chimera Chamber of Commerce's appetite was really big, and they did not leave any leeway for him. It seemed that even if they had a certain understanding of the new flyer, their understanding was still far from enough. Seeing Sue close the agreement, Ottof finally smiled for the first time since they met. "Are you done? Chairman Sue, if there are no problems, let's sign the agreement." Sue looked at Ottof in bewilderment, wondering what was going on in this guy's head. Why was he so certain that he would sign this agreement? "Thank you for the Chimera Chamber of Commerce's kindness, but I'm sorry, I still have no intention of selling the new flyer." Sue nodded. "Manager Ottof, if you're here on behalf of the Chimera Chamber of Commerce to discuss cooperation with us, I welcome it very much. But if you're only here to discuss the acquisition, then I don't think there's a need for us to continue the discussion." After saying this, Sue did not hesitate to send him off. Ottof's face sank slightly. "Chairman Sue, are you really not going to consider it? You should think carefully. Being chosen by the Chimera Chamber of Commerce is something that countless companies in the signs dream of. If you miss this opportunity, you might not have another chance in the future." Sue sipped his tea and smiled without answering. Seeing Sue's attitude, Ottof's face sank even more as he turned to look at Russell. Russell smiled awkwardly and said to Sue, "Chairman Sue, Manager Ottof is right. It's your and the new flyer's fortune to be chosen by the Chimera Chamber of Commerce. You should seriously consider it." Sue could not give face to the arrogant Ottof, but he had to consider Russell's face. He pondered for a moment and shook his head firmly. "There's no need to consider it. Sir Russell, I'm very grateful that you brought the Chimera Chamber of Commerce's representative here, but the idea of selling the new flyer has never occurred to me, so there's no need to discuss this matter." Seeing Sue's firm attitude, Russell could only helplessly turn to look at Ottof again. Ottof snorted coldly. "Chairman Sue, I hope you can consider the consequences. I'll give you 1 more month. If you change your mind, you're welcome to contact us at any time." After saying this, he ignored Sue's reaction and left. Only Sue and Russell were left in the room. Russell hesitated for a moment and did not leave with Ottof. Instead, he thought for a moment and gave Sue a bitter smile. "Chairman Sue, I just thought that the Chimera Chamber of Commerce would also like to discuss cooperation with the new flyer, but I didn't expect." Russell sighed and shook his head with a regretful expression. Sue's lips twitched. "He thought that you weren't surprised at all when Ottof made his request, and now you're saying that you didn't know about it. Who are you trying to fool?" But there was no need to expose this matter. Sue gave a noncommittal nod and changed the topic. "Sir Russell, let's talk about business. What do you want to discuss with me this time?" Hearing Sue ask about business, Russell took a deep breath. His mind shook as he replied with a nod, "Of course it's about the new fleet we're building. Chairman Sue, the 3 guard ships you provided are already in service with the Royal Navy, and with the support of the technicians you provided, they are operating well. The Navy is very satisfied with these 3 guard ships. But there is a problem." "Please speak." "Other than the magic cannons on these 3 guard ships, they aren't equipped with the military magic machines that your new flyer's guard fleet has, so their firepower is a bit lacking. Although they are much stronger than the ships we used before, they can't compare to your new flyer's guard fleet. So in order to fully display the might of these 3 guard ships, I hope that you can also equip them with other military magic machines. Sir Russell, if I'm not mistaken, I've already raised this issue when I sold the 3 frigates to you. But the reason why these 3 guard ships aren't equipped with other military magic machines is because your side rejected it. This isn't related to us, right?" Sue refuted. "This." Russell revealed an awkward smile. The price you gave back then was 2 million gold coins for a guard ship equipped with other military magic machines and 1,500,000 gold coins for a guard ship without them. This price gap is a bit large, can't you just say that you're poor? Sui muttered in his heart. He nodded before asking, then you're willing to accept this price difference now? It can't be considered completely accepting. After all, it costs 500,000 gold coins to equip a guard ship with some military magic machines. This is a bit excessive. How about this? It'll be 200,000 gold coins to equip one. What do you think? 200,000 gold coins. Su Yi's eyes popped out in an exaggerated manner. Sir Russell, are you joking? 200,000 gold coins isn't even enough to cover our costs. Chairman Su, aren't you being dishonest? Russell shook his head. It's just some simple military magic machines. How could 200,000 gold coins be a loss? Sui gave a cold snort. You don't think it's a loss? All right, you can solve it yourselves. Russell frowned deeply, but unexpectedly, he didn't continue to argue with Sui, nor did he try to bargain. Instead, he pondered for a moment before standing up. All right, Chairman Su, since we can't come to an agreement on the price right now, let's talk about this another time. Apart from talking about the military magic machines, there are some other things I need to discuss with you. Can you take me to your shipyard for a tour? We can talk while we walk. Sui felt that this was strange. This Russell shouldn't be someone who would give up that easily. Moreover, the Kandra Empire's navy should place great importance on equipping the guard ships with weapons, so why did he not care about this at all and not want to continue this discussion? Connecting this to Ottof from before, Sui felt that Russell's group was giving off a strange aura. Just what was the Kandra Empire's side planning? Chapter 834. Although the attitude of the Kanla Empire made Sui feel strange, aside from Ottof, the other merchants from Pompeii that Russell brought with him this time were very serious about discussing cooperation with New Flyer. Several of these merchants had actually gone to Nissi City in the Kingdom of Ruhr for an inspection. They had seen the prosperity of Nissi City and Nissi Port with their own eyes, and they were very eager to see such a scene. Pompeii, as one of the naval stations of the Kanla Empire, was also a coastal city. It had a military port dedicated to the Kanla Empire's navy and a civilian port belonging to Pompeii. Like Nissi Port, it followed the name of the city and was called Pompeii Port. These merchants wanted to cooperate with New Flyer. The first step was to introduce various kinds of civilian magic machines from New Flyer. For this reason, they discussed with Sui and decided to cooperate with New Flyer in the first step of the development of Pompeii Port. They were very positive about this matter. Even before they came here, they had jointly persuaded the governor of Pompeii City and obtained approval from him to invest in the development and expansion of Pompeii Port. Of course, Pompeii City did not need to invest half a copper coin in this matter. It was completely dependent on the investment of the merchants, and the governor of Pompeii City had no reason to object. Sui naturally welcomed their proposal to develop Pompeii Harbor, but he wasn't that enthusiastic about their proposal to invest with the Frestec Chamber of Commerce, with everyone taking a share of the harbor. No matter how well Pompeii Port was developed, it was still under the rule of the Kanla Empire. These chambers of commerce from Pompeii City had no problem, but New Flyer, a chamber of commerce that did not belong to the Kanla Empire, would have a lot of doubts. In case the Kanla Empire deliberately made things difficult, with the current strength of New Flyer, there was no way they could do anything. However, after some consideration and discussion, Sui agreed that New Flyer would invest 1 million gold coins in the development of Pompeii Port, and only have a symbolic 10% share of Pompeii Port. Compared to the unreliable ownership, Sui cared more about the reliable right to use it. Once the Pompeii Port was built, it would become an important window connecting the New Flyer to the south of the Kanla Empire. New Flyer would probably have countless transport fleets flocking to Pompeii port in the future, so it was crucial to obtain the priority right to use the port. Although the right to use the Canla Empire wasn't that reliable due to the powerful existence that was the Canla Empire, the right to use the Canla Empire was less likely to touch the nerves of the Canla Empire than the right to own the Canla Empire. The possibility of being guaranteed was much higher. Through this discussion with the chambers of commerce in Pompeii City, Sui discovered a fact that made him sigh with emotion. The Canla Empire was indeed one of the two great empires on the continent. Although these companies were just ordinary companies in an ordinary city near the coast of the Canla Empire, their strength was not to be underestimated. In their plan to develop the Pompeii port, the initial estimated investment was as high as 7 million gold coins. Compared to the Kingdom of Ruhr's Nissi port, the total investment for the development of the port was only 3 million gold coins, but it was more than twice as high. Moreover, the development of Nissi port was a development project that the Kingdom of Ruhr attached great importance to. King Tarik personally paid attention to it and invested a huge budget in the Kingdom of Ruhr to develop it successfully. It could be seen that compared to a superpower like the Canla Empire, a small country like the Kingdom of Ruhr was still far inferior in terms of overall strength. This was also the reason why Sui had always attached great importance to the development of the internal markets of the Canla Empire and the Mala Empire. But what made Sui a bit depressed was that as one of the two empires on the signs, the New Flyer's development in the Mala Empire was very smooth, but they kept hitting a wall in the Canla Empire. After cooperating with Ambassador Hakkinen for so long, through Ambassador Hakkinen, the various household magic machines had become popular in the Canla Empire's capital, Wimbledon City, receiving great welcome. But after close to 2 years, Sui hoped that through Ambassador Hakkinen's relationship, the New Flyer could officially enter the Canla Empire to obtain a sales channel, but it had never been satisfied. The reason for this was hard for Sui to understand, but based on the results, it seemed like Ambassador Hakkinen was a hindrance. At the same time, the Canla Empire didn't seem to care about this. Then there was the matter of the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce building a road in the Canla Empire's southwest province. This road had been under construction for over a year now, but it still hadn't been finished yet. This was only a road that was less than 500 kilometers long. With the strength of the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce, if everything went smoothly, it should be finished in half a year. But it had been delayed until now and the progress was very slow. Chairman Cruz had complained to Sui many times because of this, most of which were the local officials of the Canla Empire's southwest province. The Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce had already bribed these fellows with over 100,000 gold coins, but there were all kinds of hindrances during the construction of this road. It made Chairman Cruz even want to give up on building it many times. Anyway, the benefits of the road were clear. So if the Canla Empire wasn't willing to build a road, they would only suffer losses. Adding in the fact that Belil's Shinfei magic car dealership in Wimbledon City wasn't going well, Sui had a very bad impression of the Canla Empire. However, it didn't matter how bad Sui's impression of the Canla Empire was, it didn't affect his determination to open up the market in the Canla Empire. So a week after Russell's group left, Belil suddenly returned to the Principality of Constantine and revealed his goal to Sui, which made Sui's mind tremble. His Highness Frank has changed his mind? Sui looked at Belil with a bit of surprise and excitement. What did His Highness say? Belil tilted his head and summarized what His Highness Frank had told him during this time. He said with a smile, Frank couldn't resist the temptation of racing in the end, but he is a highness in the end, so he can't participate in the private races that I'm organizing like the other small nobles. That's why he wants to make this competition official so that more people in the empire can accept it. That way, he can participate in it legitimately. So he wants to cooperate with our company to hold a race? Sui asked in a surprised voice. What does His Highness want to hold it under? To be specific, His Highness feels that your new flyer has experience in holding races and is also a company that produces race cars, so he wants to cooperate with you. He wants to use his connections in the Canla Empire and introduce your race to the Canla Empire. He will only be responsible for the name, and the rest will be done by your new flyer. To put it simply, everything will be done by us, and His Highness will only be responsible for providing some convenience? Yes. This is actually what I've been hoping for, but His Highness didn't agree before. I didn't think that he would take the initiative to bring it up now. Belil, why? Sui asked back. Belil rubbed his hands and looked at Sui with a hesitant expression. Sui was very curious. This question wasn't something that was hard to answer, so why was Belil hesitating? Actually, aside from introducing the race in Xinfei, Frank wants me to tell you something else that is more important. Seeing Belil's hesitant expression, Sui knitted his brows. He thought that this matter must be very difficult for him, otherwise Belil wouldn't have this expression. All right, speak. No matter what His Highness proposes, it can be discussed, Sui said with a calm expression. Belil scratched his head and gave a laugh. All right. Frank said that not only is he interested in the race, he is also very interested in the magic car itself. So he hopes to cooperate with your new flyer and open a magic car factory in the Canla Empire. Hearing the first half of Belil's words, Sui could already guess what he wanted to say, so he wasn't too surprised by the second half of the request. After thinking about it, Sui asked, "How does His Highness want to cooperate?" Frank said that he wants to develop a magic car that he likes, so he hopes that your company can give him the technology related to the magic car and give him some researchers to help him develop a faster magic car. The more he said, the smaller Belil's voice became and the smile on his face became forced. It was clear that he felt that His Highness Frank's request was a bit excessive. However, Sui's expression didn't change at all. Rather, he fell into deep thought, looking like he was seriously considering this. Seeing that Sui didn't reply, Belil tentatively asked, "Chairman Su, what do you think?" Sui reached his hand out to Belil. "Do you have a detailed plan?" Belil was stunned. "You agree?" Sui shook his head. "I can't give you a definite answer right now, I can only make a decision after seeing His Highness Frank's plan." "So, do you have a plan?" Belil awkwardly shook his head. "Frank just wanted me to tell you first, he didn't give you a specific plan." Sui gave a sigh. "Are all these Canla Empire fellows this unreliable?" "All right, Belil, wait here for a few days and I'll draw up a detailed plan for you to bring back to His Highness Frank. If he agrees, there won't be a problem with this cooperation." "Then what if Frank isn't satisfied with your plan?" Sui narrowed his eyes and gave a soft snort. "If he still doesn't agree after I give in, is there a need to cooperate?" Belil swallowed a mouthful of saliva. He wanted to say a few words to Sui, but seeing Sui's cold expression, he swallowed his words back down. Chapter 835. The scorching sun finally disappeared from the horizon. Darkness covered the sky bit by bit, bringing with it a cool breeze that made the hot and dry Lawuka city much more comfortable than it was during the day. While the sky was dark and the weather was cool, more and more people left their homes to enjoy the cool air. However, unlike the usual people who gathered under the shade of trees not far from their homes, tonight, all the people of Lawuka City gathered in an open square outside the east gate of the small city. They were all looking forward to something. "Hey Shioni, you're here too." "Of course I'm here. Today is the most important episode of the third episode. I can't wait to see if the Elven Prince is dead or not." "Linka, do you think he'll die?" "Bah! Don't jinx it, how could he die? He's so handsome." "Yo, old man Kodo, aren't you always staying at home with the air conditioner and not willing to go out? Why are you willing to come all the way here today?" "What? Can't I come?" Today is the third episode. If I don't come and watch, how would I know what's going to happen? Speaking of which, Ritz, don't you think that General Locaf is too stupid? It's clearly a trap, but he still wants to lead people into it. When we humans were fighting the elves, we suffered a lot. Was it because there were a lot of idiots like him? Oh, my dear Kardashian, I've been waiting for you for a long time. You're finally here. Come, quickly sit here. Where were we last time? Hey, my dear Sephora, I'm so happy to see you. Last time? I remember we were discussing whether or not the necklace on the elven princess' neck was the legendary moon god's blessing. You said the style was different from the legends, but I don't think that's important. Lawuka City was a small city in the eastern province of the Lampari Kingdom. The total population of the city was no more than 20,000. At this time, there were more than 4,000 people gathered in this small square. It was so crowded that not even a drop of water could trickle through. Even the trees beside the square were full of young men, all of them staring at the empty space closest to the city wall. Like the people in the square, they were having heated discussions and even quarreling. Although the topics discussed by the crowd were different, they were all focused on the same point, which was the third episode of Signs Love and Hate that was going to be released tonight. This Signs Love and Hate was the latest film released by the New Moon Chamber of Commerce. It mainly told a story about the race war 3,000 years ago. The main plot of the story was a series of events that happened during the war between the humans and the elves. The main characters were a human girl and the prince of the elves. Interspersed in the main storyline of the war was the tragic love story of the elf prince and the human girl. It described how the human girl fell in love with the elf prince, but because of the irreconcilable conflict between the two races, various obstacles were created between the two. Although only the first 2 episodes of this film were released, because the story was interesting and it was about the love story between the elves and humans that many people liked to hear, once it was released, it was welcomed by countless people. Moreover, the film itself was a very novel thing. Before the New Moon Chamber of Commerce released it, the people of the Signs had never heard of this novel thing. So every time the New Moon Chamber of Commerce released the film, almost all of Lawuka City would come out, making it very lively. Steele stood on the city wall of Lawuka City and looked at the lively scene below. He turned to his subordinate and asked, "How are the preparations?" "It's all ready, Sir Chairman." The subordinate respectfully replied. "There's less than 10 minutes left before it's released, do you think?" "Go." Steele waved his hand and the subordinate immediately nodded in response. He turned around and led a few people down the city wall, heading straight for the square. It would be 8 o'clock in the evening in 10 minutes, which was when the New Moon Chamber of Commerce announced that the third episode of Signs Love and Hate would be released. Releasing it on time was something that Steele had always emphasized. So far, the New Moon Chamber of Commerce had set up 73 public screening locations in 57 cities in the Lampari Kingdom, the Principality of Constantine, and the Kingdom of Ruhr. Every time it was released, the 73 locations would release the film at the same time, ensuring that there wouldn't be any differences. Because Lawuka City was the newest city of the New Moon Chamber of Commerce, Steele had specially come here today to inspect and supervise the work here. From the looks of it, the workers here were doing quite well and there weren't any mistakes. "Hey, dear Chairman Steele, it's about to start, aren't you going down to take a look?" A delicate laugh suddenly sounded from behind. Steele slightly knitted his brows before quickly relaxing them. He turned around and said with a smile, "I believe that my subordinates will take care of the work, so I don't need to go down myself. Mrs. Walusi, why don't you go down and take a look? Could it be that you're not interested in this film?" The one called Madame Walusi was a woman in her 30s. She wore a bright red dress made of ice silk and a bright flower in her hair. She was dressed to the nines, and she swayed as she walked, giving off the impression of being a flirtatious woman. Hearing Steele's question, she covered her mouth with a palm-sized fan in her hand and let out another delicate laugh, There are so many people down there, it's so hot that people will die from the heat. I don't want to go down there. Steele's mouth couldn't help twitching. He really wanted to turn around and leave, not wanting to see this woman in front of him again. This Mrs. Wallussy always thought of herself as the wife of the city lord. No matter if it was her words or actions, she always had a high and mighty attitude, making people feel disgusted with her. It was a good thing that she didn't dare to put on the airs of the wife of the city lord in front of Steele, so Steele could barely accept it. The third episode is a very important part of the story. If you don't watch it, you won't understand what will happen later. Don't you think it's a pity? Steele patiently said with a smile. No, of course I want to watch it, but I'm not willing to watch it with all these people, especially those stinky men and those commoners. Mrs. Wallussy didn't hide her disdain for the people in the square. Chairman Steele, can't you think of a way to prepare another place for nobles like me? Steele looked at her and shook his head. I'm sorry, our company doesn't have the ability to prepare that many places, so I'm afraid we can't satisfy your request. But if you don't want to squeeze in with other people to watch the movie, I have a solution. How? Mrs. Wallussy asked in an interested voice. Our company's magic illusion projector is based on the New Flyer's magic illusion projector, but it's a bit bigger. So if you're willing, you can buy a normal household version of the magic illusion projector from New Flyer, and then buy the illusion storage box for the film from us, allowing you to watch it at home. After saying this, Steele couldn't help revealing a self-deprecating smile. In the past half a year, in order to promote the household magic illusion projector, as well as the illusion storage box that the New Moon Chamber of Commerce had developed with the Azhara tribe, she had said this countless times and was already incomparably fluent. She didn't even need to think about it, and there weren't any pauses in between. Household version of the magic illusion projector? Mrs. Wallussy's eyes opened wide as she said in an exaggerated voice, "This is my first time hearing about this. Chairman Steele, if I buy it, would I be the first person to buy it in Lawuka City?" Steele revealed a faint smile. How could she not know what Mrs. Wallussy was thinking? She said with a nod, "Yes. That's great." Madame Wallussy let out another pretentious sweet smile. "Then Mrs. Steele, I've decided to buy this household version of the magic illusion. Magic illusion. The magic illusion projector and the illusion storage box." Steele reminded her. Right, that's it. Chairman Steele, money isn't a problem. I hope that you can send this set to my private manor as soon as possible. I want to hold a private screening in my manor. Oh, he. Steele resisted the urge to cover her ears and continued, "Mrs. Wallussy, I need to remind you. Because we need to ensure that the public screening takes precedence, the illusion storage box won't store the illusion movie any faster than the public screening of Signs, Love, and Hate. So, if you want to watch the third episode as soon as possible, the best choice is to go down to the square now." Mrs. Wallussy's expression froze and she couldn't help screaming, "Why? Why do I have to spend money to watch it later than those lowly commoners? Chairman Steele, don't you think this doesn't make sense?" Hearing the words, "lowly commoners," Steele's face turned cold. She wanted to say a few words of sarcasm, but she suppressed it in the end. She patiently explained, "I'm really sorry, because of some technical reasons, it's hard to satisfy your needs. But although this won't let you watch the illusion movie any faster, it will let you watch it in a more comfortable and free environment, right?" Madame Wallussy's expression changed several times, and in the end she snorted heavily and said with a sullen expression, "All right, no matter what, send that projector you just mentioned to my private manor as soon as possible. That's it." After saying this, Mrs. Wallussy turned and left, not even bothering to say goodbye to Steele. Seeing Mrs. Wallussy go down the wall, Steele let out a soft sigh. She thought that it really wasn't easy to earn a few gold coins. She didn't have a deep understanding of it before, she only knew that Sue must have had a hard time. But when she became the chairman of the New Moon Chamber of Commerce and racked her brains for the development of the New Moon Chamber of Commerce, she finally realized how difficult it was for Sue to lead New Flyer from nothing to its current scale. However, this was the path she had chosen. Even if Sue had tried to persuade her several times, he still couldn't change her mind. Thus, she had to bear all the difficulties herself. Steele let out a soft sigh and turned to look at the square below the wall. Her gaze fell on the young couple outside the square and the 2- or 3-year-old child riding on the young man's neck. She suddenly thought of what Akali had said to her when she went to the Magic Research Institute of New Flying Chamber of Commerce with Sue. Crisis? Steele shook her head. She had known Sue for more than 8 years and had been together for 7 years. She knew what kind of person Sue was, so she wasn't worried about some messy problems like Akali had said. However, it was indeed a problem for the two of them to be separated more than they were together. Steele frowned slightly. She looked at the young couple and the child in the square, the three of them laughing while seriously thinking. Chapter 836. How to find the right balance between work and family. This was a difficult problem for all the sociologists on Earth, so it wasn't easy for Steele to find an answer. For Evita and Akali, who didn't even have their own little family, this was a problem that didn't exist at all. Then again, the two of them were busy with research all day, so how could they have time to consider other problems? New Flyer had already made a breakthrough in the Mala Empire, so Sue attached great importance to the work in the Marquis of Southgard's territory. As the core of New Flyer's technology, the Academy of Magic naturally had to provide large amounts of support in this work. For example, Sue told Evita a few days ago that he needed to build a technology center on the Marquis of Southgard's territory, providing technical support to the various factories that New Flyer had set up there, as well as the factories of the other companies. Evita was in charge of assigning personnel and making adjustments during this time, so she was very busy. Akali led the members of the Magic Resonance Research Team, running all over the place to build the Magic Signal Tower and the Magic Communication Network. She was even busier than Evita. The last time Evita saw Akali was half a month ago when Akali found time to mobilize her subordinate. At that time, Akali's skin was clearly much darker. It was clear that she had been working outside during this time, so she had been tanned. But Akali's spirit was very good. Not only was she as energetic as usual, her eyes were filled with a terrifying glow. It was clear that she was very focused on her work and was very happy with it. Evita had been friends with Akali for many years, but this was her first time seeing her this focused on something, so naturally she felt happy for her. She and Akali were both children of normal families in the Lampari Kingdom. Even if they were envied by many people for their talent as magicians, after walking down the path of magicians, they found that talent alone was far from enough. They needed opportunities and the more important support of money. The two of them were born normal and their families didn't have enough money to support their expensive magic research. Being able to enter the Lampuri Royal Academy was already their greatest effort. Originally, the two of them had thought that it would be good enough if they could become an advanced magician of the 5th rank or above in their lifetime. They would be able to live the rest of their lives as ordinary magicians, but they never thought that after meeting Sue and the New Flyer, their destinies would change this much. Now not only had their economic conditions greatly improved, they were doing the work they liked. Especially when Akali wanted to focus on studying magic resonance technology. She even rejected Suyi's invitation to go to the Lampari Kingdom to be the manager of the New Flyers Research Center, so it could be seen how much she liked her current research. Evita naturally supported her good friend's choice. Moreover, she also agreed with Suyi's description of the Magic Communication Network's future prospects on the Thane continent. She felt that Akali's research project was something she could devote her entire life to. So when the news of Akali being captured came, Evita was stunned for 5 minutes before reacting. She immediately went to find Sui. "Sir Chairman, how is Akali right now?" Sui took a deep breath and patted Evita's shoulder as he said in a deep voice, "Relax, there shouldn't be any problems right now." But how could she be captured? Evita's anxious voice even had a trace of tears in it. "She's already a 7th-level magician, how could she be captured so easily? The people who captured her must be very strong, right? Will she be in danger?" Sui gave a snort as his face sank. "They're just some clowns, what's so strong about them?" After pausing, he took a deep breath and looked at Evita. He slowed down his voice as he continued, "Evita, don't worry, Akali won't be in danger. I'll save her as soon as possible, you." "No, I want to go too." Evita suddenly cut off Suyi's words. Suyi's expression froze as he looked at Evita with a frown. He saw that she was staring at him with a determined expression without any intention of backing down. Sui had known Evita for many years and knew that although she looked very gentle on the outside, she was actually a girl who was soft on the outside but strong on the inside. After all these years, this was his first time seeing such a determined expression on her face, so naturally he knew that she had made up her mind. After hesitating a bit, Sui gave a slight nod. "All right, you'll personally lead the team. Mobilize all the magic airships that can be used, and we'll set off immediately." An hour later, the Frestec Chamber of Commerce's guard Captain Hart personally led 200 human guards, 100 elven guards, 100 dwarven guards, and 100 beastmen guards. A total of 500 guards boarded the magic airship. A total of 10 magic airships took off at the same time, forming a dark cloud in the sky. When they landed on the ground, they formed a large shadow. This was the first time New Flyer had sent out so many magic airships at the same time since they developed the magic airships, so it attracted the attention of many people. However, the magic airships were incomparably fast. After pausing in the air, they quickly flew to the south and disappeared into the distant sky. "Sir Chairman, can you tell me what is going on? Why was Akali suddenly captured? Who are the people who captured her?" Evita had only received the news that Akali was in danger, but she didn't know the specifics. While waiting on the magic airship, she immediately asked Sui about it. Sui gave a bitter laugh. "It was my negligence. Akali's whereabouts were very clear. She should be in the hands of Count Dole in the southern part of the Principality of Constantine. As for the reason, it was related to the New Flyer's promotion of the magic communication network in the duchy. When Dago Amps reported to Sui that they had been hindered by the local nobles when they were building the magic signal towers in the southern part of the duchy, Sui didn't care that much. After all, the nobles of the Principality of Constantine had already been suppressed by him, so they were like tigers without fangs. There wasn't a single noble who dared to go against the New Flyer. Last time, he had Dago Amps bring some guards to warn the nobles in the south. After that, the magic communication network was set up very smoothly. Everything was going smoothly. Akali had led her subordinates this time because the magic signal towers in that area had been built. She wanted to lead her research team to complete the final activation of the magic network. But he never thought that there would be this kind of accident. Seeing that the magic network was about to be activated and the work was about to end, the local Count Dole with the most influence suddenly made a move. He led his personal guards to surround the New Flyer's work area and captured all the technicians and workers, including Akali. After hearing Suyi's explanation, Evita let out a sigh of relief and calmed down a bit. Since this was a move against the New Flyer's construction team, Akali shouldn't be threatened for now. This was because Count Dole was very clear that if he wanted to solve this matter, he had to directly negotiate with the New Flyer. Before the results of this negotiation came out, Count Dole wouldn't make any extra move. I think that Akali definitely wasn't willing to leave her subordinates and escape, so she was captured, right? Otherwise, with her current magic power, it shouldn't be a problem for her to escape from the private guards of a small noble. Evita said. However, Sui knit his brows and shook his head. No, according to the information we received, Akali and the others were captured without any resistance. Evita was stunned. It can't be, right? How could Count Dole's private guards have someone who could capture Akali so easily? He's just an ordinary small noble. Although Count Dole was a count in name, he was only a count of the small principality of Constantine. Not to mention the Kanla Empire or the Malar Empire, he was even worse than the Lampari Kingdom and the Kingdom of Ruhr. For a small noble like this, it was already considered good to have some private guards. But to have a powerful subordinate that even a 7th-grade magician like Akali couldn't resist, that was basically an impossible matter. I'm not sure either. There's too little information coming back, so we can only go and see. Sui shook his head and sighed. Seeing Evita knit her brows, he smiled gratefully and comforted her. Don't worry, Count Dole shouldn't have the guts to harm Akali and the others. I think he just wants to use them to threaten me and negotiate with me. Yes, I know. Evita nodded, but her brows knit even more. But Sir Chairman, I still don't understand. Could it be that Count Dole doesn't know that if he does this, he will completely offend our new flyer? Has he not considered the consequences? I don't believe he's that stupid, Sui said in a deep voice. But he did such a stupid thing. The only explanation is that he has the confidence to do this. As for where this confidence comes from, Sui snorted and looked to the south with narrowed eyes. No matter who gave you this confidence, this time I'll definitely make you regret it. Chapter 837. 2.5 hours later, the 10 magic airships arrived at Count Dole's private manor that was 300 kilometers south of the new Flight Commerce main base. Akali was still in Count Dole's hands, so Sui naturally didn't plan on acting rashly. He ordered the 10 magic airships to stop at the gates of the manor. When they came out of the magic airships, they saw the gates of the manor open. A group of soldiers wearing bright armor and 3 luxurious horse carriages slowly came out. Sui curled his lips, thinking that his guess was right. This Count Dole had indeed found helpers, which gave him the confidence to move against the employees of the new flyer. In the Principality of Constantine, every noble had one or even several magic sedans to replace the traditional horse carriages. Count Dole's horse carriage had already been thrown to the side by him, but now that he had brought out these luxurious and traditional horse carriages, it was clear that they came from another country. Sui and Evita led Hart and the 10 guards out of the magic airship, waiting for the horse carriages to come over. The horse carriages passed through the cement road in front of the manor and stopped around 50 meters away from the magic airship. The door of the first horse carriage opened and Count Dole slowly came out. After seeing Sui, Count Dole revealed a strange proud smile. He reached his hand out and bent over, preparing to support him. Seeing this, Sui confirmed his guess even more. Count Dole was known for being domineering among the southern nobles of the duchy, but now that he was acting this respectful, it could be seen that the person in the horse carriage was someone that far surpassed him. What Sui didn't expect was that what came out of the carriage was a delicate and small hand with smooth skin. What appeared in front of everyone with this hand was a woman who was still dressed up in this hot summer day. She was meticulously dressed, and one could see that she had a noble aura to her. Judging from the luster of her skin, this woman looked to be in her early 30s at most. But based on the deep crow's feet at the corners of her eyes and the other small details on her body, one could see that she was far from being in her 30s. It was clear that because she came from a large noble family, she had taken care of herself since she was young, which allowed her to look this young. Compared to her face, what reflected her identity more was her aura. When she got out of the carriage, she naturally revealed an aloof aura. This kind of attitude was not like the vulgar arrogance of some nouveau riche, but the pure and natural display of a person who was born to think that they should be high and mighty. This kind of aura was definitely not something that a normal person could pretend to be. Seeing this woman, Sui slightly knit his brows knitted. He didn't think that Count Dole's backer this time would be such a noble woman. Out of the basic etiquette of signs, Sui first bowed to the madam, then he immediately turned to Count Dole and said in a deep voice, "Count Dole, please immediately release our company's people. If they didn't receive any injuries, then I can treat it as if this matter didn't happen." Count Dole looked at Sui and pretended to be surprised. "Chairman Su, your company's people are missing. Why are you directly looking for me?" "I don't know where they went, maybe they were too bored at work, so they went out to sea to play?" Evita was about to angrily shout, but she was stopped by Sui. "Count Dole, we all know what's going on, so don't waste your time. I'll give you an hour to release our company's subordinates, otherwise you'll have to bear the consequences," Sui said calmly. Count Dole raised his eyebrows. "Chairman Su, I already said that the people aren't with me. Do you want to force me to do it? Even if you are." This time, it was the noblewoman beside Count Dole who raised her hand to interrupt him. "Surak, what are you afraid of?" The noblewoman frowned and looked at Count Dole in confusion. "The people you caught are the subordinates that this guy was talking about? Then just catch them, what's there to hide, it's simply embarrassing." Being exposed by the noblewoman, Count Dole smiled awkwardly. "Aunt, I just wanted to play with him." The noblewoman snorted. "What's there to play with such an insignificant character? I don't have that much time to play with you. Tell him to take his people and scram. He's not allowed to take half a step here in the future. Otherwise, I'll just break his legs." Sui Evita, as well as Captain Hart and the others behind them, were all stunned. Wasn't this noblewoman speaking too arrogantly? Did she know who Sui was? However, Count Dole seemed to have received some great order as he turned to look at Sui and waved his hand with a proud expression. "Hey, Sui, did you hear that? Aunt wants you to scram. If you know what's good for you, then leave quickly." Sui was so angry that he laughed. He looked at Count Dole, who was trying to intimidate others, and his eyes fell on the noblewoman as he said in a deep voice, "Madam, I don't like to waste time talking nonsense. So tell me who you are and I'll see if I can afford to offend you. If I can't afford to offend you after knowing your identity, then I'll leave without another word." The noblewoman looked at Sui in surprise. She revealed a look of praise as she slowly nodded. "Not bad, not bad. I thought that since you were a merchant, you would waste a lot of words, but I never thought that you would be such an interesting person. All right, Surak, tell him who I am." Count Dole stuck out his chest and loudly replied, "Sui, listen well. This is my aunt, the famous Duchess Windsor of the Canla Empire's southern province. How about it? Do you think you can afford to offend her now?" Hearing this answer, Sui's eyes narrowed. In order to open the Canla Empire market, New Flyer had done a lot of detailed information on the Canla Empire. For the important people of the Kandra Empire, the Frestek Chamber of Commerce had collected quite a bit of information on them, so they could use it in the future. Sui as the chairman, it was impossible for him to know all this information, but he did know a bit about the most important missions. And among the important missions of the Canla Empire that he knew, Duke Windsor was one of them. This Lord Governor of the Canla Empire's southern province could be said to control all the military and political power in the southern province of the Canla Empire. He was one of the most important people in the southern province. Even in the large Canla Empire, Duke Windsor was a person that couldn't be ignored. In the information that Sui had on him, if New Flyer wanted to introduce their products into the southern province of the Canla Empire, they couldn't avoid this important person. Sui never thought that he would meet his wife here. Based on how Count Dole called her, she seemed to be Count Dole's aunt. He didn't know if she was Count Dole's aunt or if she was related to him. He also didn't know if her appearance here was a coincidence or if Count Dole specially invited her here. Sui looked over the luxurious carriages and the badges on the carriages. He felt that Count Dole wouldn't lie about this matter because he couldn't take the consequences. This meant that this Duchess Windsor was most likely real. Thinking of this, Sue calmed himself and gave the lady a bow again. So it was the Duchess. I've been rude. Duchess Windsor gave a slight nod. Chairman Sue, do you think you can offend me now? Sue was silent for a bit before giving another bow to Duchess Windsor before turning to leave. Count Dole's arrogant laughter came from behind him, but Sue didn't even turn back as he entered the magic airship. Evita, Hart, and the 10 guards behind them looked at each other in dismay, their eyes filled with disbelief. Could it be that Sir Chairman was scared by this Duchess Windsor and chose to give up? No. This is impossible. Sir Chairman definitely isn't this kind of person. Evita shook her head and threw this thought out of her mind. She followed Sue back to the magic airship. Hart was stunned before waving his hand at the 10 guards, and they all came back. After a while, the doors of the magic airship closed and they took off again, disappearing into the horizon. Count Dole on the ground looked into the distance and knit his brows. He said to Duchess Windsor beside him in a low voice, "Aunt, this Sue actually ran away like this. What do we do now?" At this time, his face no longer had the arrogant and complacent expression from before. Duchess Windsor looked at the white clouds in the sky and after being silent for a bit, she said in a deep voice, "Suruk, this Sue really surprised me. It seems like he is a very cautious fellow. You have to be careful." Count Dole curled his lips, not caring about it at all. "What are you afraid of? Aunt is here. I don't believe that he really dares to do anything. According to me, he must have been so scared after knowing Aunt's identity that he didn't dare do anything. Hey, he brought quite a few people this time. I thought that he really wanted to make a move, but I never thought that he was a coward." Duchess Windsor thought about it before revealing a smile. "That's right. He is just a small merchant from a small country. How could he dare act presumptuously in front of me? But the things he brought seem quite good. If there is a chance, I have to get some." Count Dole laughed, "Aunt, be assured. As long as you want it, it's just a matter of a single word. I dare guarantee that Sue has no other choice other than obediently sending it over." Duchess Windsor nodded with a faint smile, as the seriousness in her eyes completely disappeared. Chapter 838. Sir Chairman, what do we do now? In the magic airship, Evita stared right at Sue as she anxiously asked this. "If a collie stays in their hands, I'm very worried." "What? You don't think that I'm afraid of Duchess Windsor, so I can only retreat?" Sue pretended to be surprised as he asked this. "Sir Chairman, it's already like this. Can you stop joking with me?" Evita looked at Sue with a strange gaze. "Do you think I don't know what kind of person you are? You definitely won't abandon a collie." Sue revealed a faint smile. "All right, I won't joke around. That's right, it's impossible to abandon a collie and the others. If this was spread, I wouldn't be able to keep my position as the chairman. I'm not afraid of that Duchess Windsor, but based on Count Dole's performance just now, he might think that he has someone backing him and won't accept my threat. If I force him too much, it might be disadvantageous to a collie's group." "Then what do we do?" Evita frowned. Evita knitted her brows. "This Count Dole won't listen to force or persuasion. How can we save them from his hands?" "Don't worry. The reason why Count Dole captured a collie's group was naturally to discuss conditions with me. Otherwise, there's no meaning in him doing this. Before the conditions are discussed, he won't do anything to a collie's group, so we still have time to consider how to deal with this." Sue was silent for a bit before taking a piece of paper. He wrote a few words on it before folding it up and activating his magic. After a while, he drew a magic sealing array on the folded piece of paper. With the support of 2 magic sealing arrays, other than magicians who knew how to open the seal, if anyone else opened it, the magic sealing array would automatically destroy the paper. Sue gave the sealed paper to Evita. Take this to see Teacher Carmilla and tell her about the situation here. At the same time, go back and discuss with Kennard and ask him to arrange some follow-up work. You just need to tell him that this time I need to give some people a deep warning. As for the rest, don't worry about it. Do you understand what I mean? Evita put the letter in her pocket and nodded. Understood. But Mr. President, aren't you going back? I won't go back. Count Dole isn't a patient guy, so we don't have much time left. I have to hurry up and prepare countermeasures. After saying this, Sue smiled again and patted Evita's shoulder, saying softly, Evita, you really don't need to worry. Although Count Dower had unexpectedly invited a helper from the Candla Empire, this helper might be like an invincible shield to him, but it was nothing in my eyes. Do you believe me? Evita bit her lip and nodded. Yes, President, I will always believe in you. The same goes for Akali. Good. Just in case, take the 3 magic airships back and I'll wait for your good news. Sue revealed a faint smile. Of course, perhaps when you come back, Akali will have already been saved by me. Evita nodded and quickly stood up. There's no time to lose. Sir Chairman, let's begin. All right. After a while, the 3 magic airships carried Evita and the 150 guards back to the new Flight Commerce main base. The remaining 7 magic airships turned southwest and landed on a small mountain 30 kilometers to the west of Count Dole's manor. A night passed. The next morning, as soon as the sun shined down from the east, turning the road in front of Count Dole's manor into an orange color, Sue appeared in front of the gate. The 2 Count Dole's guards who were guarding the gate looked at Sue in surprise. They immediately recognized him and quickly came forward to welcome him. Seeing the 2 guards tightly holding their weapons, looking like they didn't know if they should point at Sue revealed a faint smile. He nodded at one of them and said, Go and inform Count Dole. Tell him that New Flyers Chairman Sue is here. If it's convenient for him, I hope that we can sit down and talk. The 2 guards looked at each other. The guard that Sue was looking at hesitated a bit before nodding and turning to run into the manor. Seeing him run into the gate, Sue gave a sigh and shook his head. If it wasn't for Count Dole being against the magic communication network, this guard could have just contacted Count Dole through the communication device at the gate. He wouldn't have needed to go in and tell him in person. Sue looked at the other guard and found that he had a nervous look. He revealed a smile to him and turned to look at the gate of the manor. He stood there and didn't move at all. He wasn't worried that Count Dole would refuse to meet him because just like what he analyzed to Evita yesterday, Count Dole wasn't a madman or a complete idiot. If it wasn't for his other goals, he wouldn't have kidnapped Akali and the New Flyer's subordinate. He was very clear on the consequences of doing this. Even if he had the support of the Candla Empire, there were no benefits in completely offending New Flyer like this. As expected, after around 10 minutes, a tattered horse carriage carrying the guard that had just left slowly drove out of the manor. Chairman Sue, Sir Count Dole wants you to come in. The guard relayed Count Dole's order while curiously looking over Sue. The New Flyers Chairman Sue was a legendary person in the hearts of everyone in the Principality of Constantine. Now that he was lucky enough to see him, of course he had to take a few more looks. Sue looked at the carriage in front of him. Other than the 2 wooden wheels and one that was covered in cracks, it looked like it would collapse at any moment. There was no luxurious decorations, there wasn't even a roof to block the sun, and even the horse pulling the carriage was an old horse. He couldn't help smiling. This Count Dole, it really was hard for him to find this kind of carriage. But this fellow being this stingy, Sue was worried that the negotiation with him would be a bit unexpected. Let's go. Sue calmly got into the carriage. He didn't enter the carriage, but sat on the shaft next to the guard in charge of operating the carriage. He looked casual, as if he was an ordinary civilian. The guard looked at Sue nervously. Only then did he remember Count Dole's order. He raised his whip and drove the carriage into the manor. After a bumpy ride for more than 10 minutes, Sue finally saw a stretch of buildings in front of him. Looking back at the manor gate that had disappeared from his sight, Sue frowned slightly. Although his policy of abolishing the nobles' private territories in the Principality of Constantine was effective, there wasn't a single piece of private territory in the Principality of Constantine that belonged exclusively to nobles. But when these nobles handed over their private territories, they undoubtedly made a lot of deductions. Take Count Dole's private manor as an example. Suy's policy through the Congress of the Principality of Constantine was that while nobles handed over their private territories, they could still keep their private manors. Because this was considered ordinary private property, it wasn't restricted by this policy. In the end, Count Dole obviously expanded his private manor by at least 10 times when he handed over his private territories. This was why the private manor became so spacious. There were many nobles like Count Dole who did this, but because the increase in size was countless times smaller than their private territories, Sue didn't go too far. He acquiesced to the existence of these excessively large private manors as a compromise between him and these nobles. While thinking about these problems, the carriage had already brought Sue to the front of the building. Sue jumped down from the shaft of the carriage and rubbed but that was a little sore from the bumpy ride. He didn't greet anyone and directly walked to the center of the hall. On the way, a few guards seemed to want to stop him, but Sue just walked past them with his head held high. In the end, they didn't do anything and let Sue walk in smoothly. When he walked into the hall, he saw Count Dole lying on a wide, soft chair. He was smiling foolishly, and no one knew what he was thinking. Suddenly seeing Sue walk in, Count Dole was startled and couldn't help but jump up from the chair. He pointed at Sue and shouted, "How did you get in?" Sue laughed. "Didn't you already send a message?" Count Dole was startled for a moment, but then he reacted. He suddenly realized that his reaction was a little embarrassing, so he fiercely glared at the 2 private guards who followed Sue in. "How did you open the door? How did you let someone break in? Do you still want to stay here?" The 2 private guards lowered their heads and didn't dare to have any refute. "Okay, get out of here." Count Dole waved his hand after getting angry at them, as if he wanted them to get out. After hesitating for a moment, he abruptly took back this sentence and sat down again with a cold snort. Sue saw him looking at him and smiled. "Count Dole, where is the Duchess now?" Count Dole glanced at Sue and said disdainfully, "Who do you think you are? Is Aunt someone you can see whenever you want?" Sue shrugged and wasn't moved by Count Dole's words. He nodded and continued, "Then Count Dole, can you make the decision here?" "Nonsense. I am the master here. If I can't make the decision, then who can?" Count Dole said angrily. "Is that so?" Sue showed a mocking smile. "Okay, Count Dole, let's not waste time and get down to business. After a day of consideration, I still feel that I can't give up on these subordinates of the Chamber of Commerce, so I specially came to visit you today, hoping to talk to you. Count Dole, tell me, what do I have to do for you to release them?" Count Dole had an expression as if he already knew that he would do this. He laughed and said, "Chairman Sue, oh Chairman Sue, if you were this smart yesterday, your subordinates wouldn't have suffered for another day. If they knew that you, the president, actually turned around and ran away, what do you think they would think?" Sue was still unmoved. He indifferently replied, "What they think is their business. I just want to know, what do I have to do for you to release them?" Count Dole coldly snorted. He leaned back on the soft chair and looked at Sue with a proud face. "What do I have to do for you to release them? It's very simple. As long as you agree to my conditions, I promise to release them as soon as possible." "Okay, tell me your conditions." "Listen well. First, give me back the private territory that was supposed to be mine. Second—" "Impossible," Sue coldly interrupted Count Dole. Chapter 839. Count Dole was about to talk about the conditions he had already prepared, but he never thought that Sue-Yi would block his words. He couldn't help coughing as he looked at Sue-Yi in surprise. "Chairman Su, what did you say?" Count Dole's eyes opened wide with a look of disbelief. "You're saying it's impossible? I just mentioned the first condition and you're saying it's impossible? Are you here to discuss conditions with me?" "I'm only targeting your first condition," Sue-Yi calmly replied. "Since the territory of a noble has been taken away, there is no chance of returning it. I definitely can't agree to this." Count Dole angrily said, "Then do you still want to discuss this?" "Of course." Sue-Yi revealed a faint smile. "Please tell me the other conditions, we should still have room to discuss." Count Dole angrily waved his hand. "The first condition is the most important and basic condition. If you don't agree, there is no chance of discussing this." Sue-Yi stood up with a smile and gave Count Dole a bow. "Then let's end it here for today. When Count Dole has thought it through, we can discuss it again." Count Dole saw Sue-Yi turn to leave after giving a bow without any hesitation and was stunned. "Chairman Su, you're really planning on leaving like this? You're not planning on saving your subordinates?" Sue-Yi turned to look at Count Dole. "Of course my subordinates will be saved, but I definitely can't agree to this condition. Count Dole, let's wait for you to calm down and think about it before we discuss it again." After throwing down these words, Sue-Yi left without even turning back. Count Dole unconsciously raised his arm and wanted to pull Sue-Yi back, but he stopped himself in the end. When Sue-Yi left the hall, Duchess Windsor came out from a small door in the back. Count Dole saw her and rushed over like he had seen his savior, saying with a pleading look, "Aunt, why did this Sue-Yi have this kind of reaction? Does he really not plan on saving his subordinates?" Duchess Windsor also slightly knit her brows as she looked in the direction Sue-Yi left in. After thinking for a bit, she revealed a smile. "This Chairman Su really is an interesting person. But I'm very curious, where did he get the confidence to negotiate with you like this? Is it because of his small new flyer?" This Count Dole's expression several times before, but he still couldn't help saying, "His company's guards. They are indeed quite strong." Duchess Windsor looked at Count Dole and said with a cold snort, "That's just showing off in front of you useless subordinates. Could it be that you can beat the elites I brought? Then again, even if he has more courage, I don't believe he'll dare to make a move." Count Dole quickly said with a smile, "Of course. Aunt, you are an important person from the Kanla Empire. This new flyer has been looking for a chance to enter the Kanla Empire in the past 2 years. Now that he has seen you, he can't wait to flatter you. How could he dare make a move against you? It's good that you know." Duchess Windsor Dole thought for a bit before continuing, "How about this? No matter what this fellow says, you can't relax on these conditions. If he doesn't agree, you can't let them go." "Then what if he really doesn't agree? We can't really kill his subordinates, right?" "Idiot!" Duchess Windsor angrily scolded. Duchess Windsor Dole angrily said, "His subordinates fell into our hands, and he as the chairman didn't think of a way to save them. If this was spread, what prestige would he have as the chairman? Don't you have that thing called newspapers here? Find a few newspapers and publish this matter. I want to see if he dares to keep dragging this out." Count Dole's eyes lit up. "Good. Aunt, your idea really is good. There are several newspapers in the south of our duchy that are on our side. I'll find them to publish this matter." After saying this, Count Dole hesitated a bit, "But this matter really isn't glorious, so if it's published in the newspapers, I'm afraid there will be even more people scolding me." "Idiot!" Duchess Windsor Dole couldn't help angrily cursing. "You don't even have the ability to turn black into white. How did you become a noble for all these years?" Count Dole shrank back and said with an awkward smile, "All right, I'll think of a way. Aunt, you don't need to worry." "Humph. Rather than worrying about you, I'm more worried about the new flyer subordinates you caught. I feel that this Sue-Yi definitely won't give up on his subordinates like this. You have to be careful. He might find a way to save his subordinate. Duchess Windsor Dole reminded him. I understand. But Aunt, I don't think there's a need to worry. Great Magician Randy and the elites you brought are there, not to mention Sue-E not saving them. He wouldn't even dare make a move against them. Count Dole said with a laugh. Humph. He wouldn't dare. Hashtag Sue-E who came out of Count Dole's manor didn't go far. In front of the two guards who opened the door, he directly used a teleportation spell. In the blink of an eye, Sue-E appeared in a small forest. There were 50 Frestec Chamber of Commerce guards in the forest, but when they suddenly saw a figure appear in front of them, they all raised their weapons and pointed them at Sue-E. It's me, what's the situation? Sue-E raised his hand and asked. Seeing that it was Sue-E, the guards let out a sigh of relief. Captain Hart, who was leading the guards, pointed at a wooden wall not far away from the forest and replied, We've already received a message from Akali's Research Institute, but it's intermittent and not complete. She must have a high-level magician guarding her, so of course she can't keep sending out magic signals. Sue-E nodded and came to the side of 3 young men wearing the uniform of the Magic Research Institute of New Flying Chamber of Commerce. What did Akali's message say? These 3 researchers were brought along by Sue-E when he left the New Flight Commerce main base yesterday. They were actually members of Akali's research team, but because they were working on other things, they weren't caught by Count Dole. They were brought here because the 3 of them were closely monitoring a small device that was only as tall as their knees. This device had been emitting a faint light green magic light, and it would flicker twice from time to time. It looked a bit strange in this dark forest. This device was a communication receiver developed by Akali's research team based on the technology of magic resonance. If it sensed with a specific frequency of magic waves, it could reveal some messy and incomprehensible messages. However, if this message fell into the hands of Akali's research team, they could analyze it with a special program. Originally, this device was developed by Akali to be used in places where it was inconvenient to use a magic communicator, so its range of use was not very wide. But now, it was used here to receive some messages from Akali, who was in Count Dole's private manor, which was very appropriate. One of the researchers handed a piece of paper to Sue-E. Sue-E took a look and found that the records on it were indeed intermittent, and they were all extremely short messages. But through these messages, some useful information could be summarized. According to the messages conveyed by Akali, she and the other subordinates of the new flyer were now gathered together and imprisoned in a cellar in Count Dole's private manor. Although the situation was not good, it was not bad either. At least no one had suffered any physical injuries. Seeing this, Sue-E was relieved. The only thing he was worried about was that Count Dole did not value these people and would torture them first. Now, it seemed that Count Dole was still as Sue-E had guessed. At least before the 2 sides reached an agreement, he would maintain restraint on these people. After reading, Sue-E turned to Hart and asked, How is the exploration of the manor's terrain? Hart laughed as he took out a map from his chest and spread it out in front of Sue-E. We used the magic airship to check the manor in the sky, but they didn't react at all. They really were too careless. Sue-E rolled his eyes. The people of this world weren't used to the magic airship yet, so who would be on guard against enemies in the sky? Looking down at the map, he found that the map was very detailed. It clearly marked every place in Count Dole's manor, not even letting go of a single rock or tree. Sir Chairman, look. According to the analysis of the information from Akali's research facility, we've determined that she and the others should be here. Hart pointed to a place in the middle of the manor to the north. Based on the map, there was only a small rock garden and a small forest here, so it didn't seem like there was a place to imprison people. There should be a large cellar underground. When we investigated in the sky, we found that someone entered the rock garden here and didn't come out for a long time. Hart added, That means that this should be the entrance. Sue-E nodded before asking, Then what about the surrounding guards? Have you found anything? Hart shook his head. Perhaps most of them are underground, so it doesn't seem that tight on the surface. There should be less than 50 guards. All right, since the situation is clear, when the reinforcements arrive, we'll immediately take action. Sue slapped the map and looked over the surrounding guards as he said in a deep voice. Chapter 840. Maget? Randy looked up at the blazing sun in the sky. With a wave of his hand, a breeze rolled up and brought him and the recliner under his buttocks to the shade of a tree at the side. His entire body was once again submerged in the shadows. This damn weather. Maget? After cursing softly, Randy turned his head to look at the dozen or so soldiers who were still standing under the scorching sun not far away. They were still wearing their full armor despite being exposed to the scorching sun. However, he felt a lot better. Compared to those pitiful soldiers, his treatment as a great magician was countless times better, no matter what. Of course, if it wasn't for the Duchess' orders, he wouldn't be standing guard here in the middle of the day. He was a respected great magician, so as long as he wasn't willing, even the Duke couldn't force him to do anything. But seeing that the Duke had given him all kinds of benefits, he was very willing to serve the Duke and his wife. In the end, no matter how strong a magician was, they were still humans. Then again, magic research required large amounts of gold coins. Just by relying on great magician Randy, it would be very hard for him to get the resources he wanted. Thinking of this, he couldn't help giving a cold snort and looking at the ground. Among the captured subordinates of the new flyer, there were quite a few magicians and they were all quite strong. The young female magician's talent was even more shocking. She was only in her 20s and had the strength of a 7th-grade magician. Even in great magician Randy's eyes, she was very outstanding. But for such a talented magician, instead of focusing on magic research, he joined this damn Frestec Chamber of Commerce and studied those damn magic machines. Magic machines? Wasn't that just another way of saying magic tools? This kind of thing that only magicians who couldn't increase their magic power would research, but in the eyes of a traditional magician like Great Magician Randy, it was simply a child's toy. It had no meaning to magicians at all. Using these things to trick normal people was fine, but in front of a real magician, it was simply a joke. Great Magician Randy shook his head, thinking that if this female magician named Akali knew her place, he could help her walk down the wrong path. With her talent, as long as she studied magic with Great Magician Randy for a few years, she would definitely be able to greatly increase her strength. Perhaps in 10 years, she would have the opportunity to break through and become a great magician. Moreover, more importantly, this female mage was quite beautiful and had a good figure. Great Magician Randy thought of the white skin exposed by Akali's clothes when she was caught. He couldn't help swallowing a mouthful of saliva as he felt his body heat up. If it wasn't for the Duchess saying that these captives were still useful, Great Magician Randy wouldn't have been able to hold himself back. With his rich experience, of course he could tell at a glance that this astonishingly talented and beautiful female magician was actually a virgin. Several heavy footsteps came closer, interrupting Great Magician Randy's ambiguous thoughts. Great Magician Randy angrily turned to look, but he saw 3 of Count Dole's subordinates struggling to move a rectangular metal box that was as tall as a person over. What is this thing? Great Magician Randy knit his brows. With a wave of his hand, there was a gust of wind that blew the rectangular metal box over and placed it beside him. Many thanks for your excellency, Great Magician's help. The 3 subordinates quickly thanked Great Magician Randy before busying themselves around the rectangular metal box. Hey, what is this thing? Great Magician Randy couldn't help asking. What are you moving it over for? Reporting to the Great Magician, this is New Flyer's newest cabinet magic air conditioner. Sir Count Dole had us move it over to let you feel cooler. Cabinet magic air conditioner? What is this thing? Great Magician Randy knit his brows. He thought that Count Dole always gritted his teeth when he mentioned Sue-E and New Flyer, but he didn't hesitate to use New Flyer's things at all. "You'll know in a bit," that subordinate replied before working with the other two. They moved the cabinet magic air conditioner to a position 2 meters away from Great Magician Randy, placing it right in front of him. "Your Excellency Great Magician, please see if it's suitable." One of the subordinates pressed a button on the magic air conditioner. Great Magician Randy immediately felt the magic fluctuations coming from the magic air conditioner before feeling a cool breeze that instantly dispelled the heat from his body. Wind-attributed magic array? No, it's not just a wind-attributed magic array, there should also be an ice-attributed magic array? Great Magician Randy knit his brows as he felt the magic fluctuations coming from the magic air conditioner before curling his lips in disdain. Humph, just some small tricks. Even if he disdained the magic array in the magic air conditioner, Great Magician Randy had to admit that with this thing, it did make him feel much more comfortable and he could enjoy the cool breeze. Although with his abilities as a great magician, he could make a frost array to achieve this effect, it would take a large amount of magic materials to make a frost array, and it was very troublesome. Of course he couldn't just make one outside the manor to cool himself down. Now that he had this cabinet magic air conditioner, it saved him quite a bit of trouble. These little things do have some merits. With the magic air conditioner, Great Magician Randy comfortably laid back down in the chair as a collie's figure appeared in his mind again. At this moment, he suddenly felt an extremely weak mana fluctuation coming from underground. "Humph, you still haven't given up." Great Magician Randy gave a cold snort. These weak magic fluctuations kept appearing over the past 2 days. There was no need to guess, it should be from that young female magician named Akali. Great Magician Randy actually didn't understand why she did this. After all, other than magicians, normal people couldn't sense magic fluctuations at all. Moreover, the magic fluctuations she was releasing were very weak. Even Great Magician Randy could only vaguely feel it, so it was very hard for it to spread to a far place. Great Magician Randy was a bit wary of the magic fluctuations Akali was releasing at first, but after thinking about it, it didn't affect anything, so he just let her be. He even had the leisure to feel the magic fluctuations Akali was releasing while estimating Akali's level of magic. His control is this unstable and intermittent, it seems like his foundation is lacking. I wonder who taught him this. Great Magician Randy thought in his heart. Great Magician Randy thought in his heart, after I get her, I have to properly train her. Otherwise, wouldn't it be a waste of such good talent? While he was thinking about how to train Akali, Great Magician Randy suddenly felt a dangerous aura approaching. His brows knit as he flew up. Hong! The chair he was sitting in turned to ashes, and even the magic air conditioner that had been blowing out wind was blown to the ground, rolling several times on the ground before stopping. Great Magician Randy looked down before looking up in shock and anger. He looked at the magician wearing a light blue magic robe floating in the air and asked in a cold voice, "Who are you? Why did you suddenly attack me?" The magician wearing the blue robe gave a strange laugh before saying in a sharp voice, "I thought that the great magicians from the Kanla Empire would have already been corrupted, but I never thought that your vigilance would be this high." "Not bad, not bad." Great Magician Randy was even more shocked and angry. The other side had suddenly attacked and was very ruthless, using the 8th grade fire magic explosion bullet. If it had been hit, even if he was a great magician, he definitely wouldn't have had a good time. "If I'm not wrong, you should be a great magician, right?" Great Magician Randy asked in a deep voice. "As a great magician, you still sneak attacked me, don't you feel that you've lost face?" The blue-robed magician curled his lips and laughed. "What is face? Can it be eaten? But you don't need to worry, I'm just giving you a warning, I'm not planning on going all out with you." The blue-robed magician waved his hand to say goodbye before lowering his head to fly towards the entrance of the dungeon that great magician Randy was guarding. It really is a fellow sent by the new flyer. Great magician Randy took a deep breath and gathered his magic, planning on making a move to stop the blue-robed magician. However, when he was about to make a move, he felt an incomparably strong warning of danger. His heart was filled with shock as he quickly released a magic barrier. Hong! An incomparably strong explosion sounded in the air, shaking the magic barrier that great magician Randy had hurriedly put up, as if it would disappear at any moment. Great magician Randy was incomparably shocked. Although this sudden attack couldn't compare to a forbidden spell, it wasn't inferior to a 9th-grade spell. If it wasn't for the fact that he was a great magician and was much stronger than normal high-grade magicians, he would have been in a very difficult situation. The new flyer had already surprised great magician Randy by sending a great magician, but now there was another fellow that wasn't weaker than a great magician making a move. This was completely out of his expectations. Seeing that he couldn't stop the blue-robed magician from entering the dungeon, great magician Randy gave a cold snort and ignored him. He turned around and prepared to focus on dealing with this magician that wasn't weak. However, when he looked into the distance, he didn't see a single person. In the endless sky, from left to right, there were 10 fierce steel monsters standing in a row, glaring at great magician Randy in the middle. Chapter 841. Captain, don't you think this fellow is a fool? He actually took our attacks. Does he really think that he is invincible just because he is a great magician? On the magic airship in the middle, a new flyer guard looked at great magician Randy in the distance with a look of disbelief. Hart, who was in charge of commanding the magic airship, laughed. It's clear that this fellow doesn't know the power of the big fellow under our feet. All right, everyone listen to my orders and continue attacking. Don't let the other side's great magician make a move. We have to buy time for Sir Chairman and great magician Runa. Yes. There was an enlarged magic communicator in the middle cabin of the magic airship that came from a group of people's voices. After a while, the front of the 10 magic airships in the air lit up at the same time. It instantly turned a deep blue and became brighter, condensing into 10 balls of light in the blink of an eye. Great magician Randy in the air slightly knit his brows. He could feel strong magic fluctuations coming from these 10 balls of light, which meant that these 10 balls of light should be a kind of magic attack. But he didn't care that much. Compared to the 10 magic airships in front of him, he cared more about the great magician who should be in the dungeon. Let's quickly take care of these annoying flies. If that fellow saves them, we won't be able to explain it to the Duchess. Great magician Randy had just made his decision when the 10 balls of light left the magic airships and flew at him. These 10 balls of light were incomparably fast. As soon as they left the 10 magic airships, they arrived in front of great magician Randy. It was a good thing that great magician Randy had already set up a magic barrier, so he didn't panic at all. He coldly looked at the 10 magic airships and raised his right hand, preparing to launch a counterattack against the 10 magic airship. Hong! Hong, 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 hong. However, when the first ball of light hit the magic barrier, great magician Randy immediately felt that something was wrong. The might of this ball of light was actually the same as the attack he had just suffered. It was almost equal to the might of a peak 9th grade spell. Moreover, it was just 1, but now it was 10. After a series of explosions, although great magician Randy wasn't really injured under the protection of the magic barrier, his face was still a bit pale. Even if he was a great mage, it would not be easy for him to use a magic barrier to withstand the attacks of 10 9th-tier spells. In order to block these 10 attacks, the amount of magic power he had consumed couldn't be ignored. When the light from the magic's collision faded, great magician Randy looked at the 10 magic airships in the distance, and the contempt in his eyes gradually disappeared. Although he still didn't know what the 10 floating steel monsters were, they seemed to be similar to the legendary magical battleships of the elves. They also used magic to float in the air and launch attack. Of course, it was impossible for every one of them to be as powerful as the legendary elven magic battleship. After all, it was rumored that during the racial wars, even a human mage would not be able to contend against an elven magic battleship. However, even if they only had 1/10 of the power of the elven magic battleships, the combined power of 10 of them should not be underestimated. Great Magician Randy took a deep breath and decided to treat this seriously. He activated his magic and instantly disappeared. This was the advantage that great magicians had over other magicians. This was because only after becoming a great magician could they grasp spatial magic. Grasping spatial magic meant that they could use spatial teleportation at any time, which would give them the initiative in a battle. However, when Great Magician Randy's figure disappeared from the sky, the 10 magic airships that had been floating in the air began to move at the same time, instantly scattering. Does this guy think that we can't do anything to him just because he knows how to teleport? The guard beside Captain Hart once again let out a mocking laugh. The guard beside Great Magician Juna laughed. We've been trampled by Great Magician Juna several hundred times, how could we not know how to deal with him? Captain Hart beside him ignored him and looked at the red dot on the platform in front of him. He suddenly shouted, "Airship number 4, immediately float. The other airships, aim your cannons in the 3 o'clock direction and listen to my orders. 3, 2, 1. All fire." The magic airship in the air suddenly flew into the sky, and the other 9 magic airships condensed 9 balls of light in front of them. After a while, they shot out at the magic airship that was floating in the air. That place was originally empty, but when the 9 balls of light flew over, Great Magician Randy's figure appeared out of thin air. Great Magician Randy appeared from the space and didn't see the magic airship that should have been there. Instead, he suddenly found that the 9 balls of light were flying beside him. His heart was filled with shock as he quickly used all his magic to create a magic barrier. Hong, 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 hong. When the light scattered, Great Magician Randy, who was in the middle of the magic barrier, had a pale face. There was even a trace of blood that came out of the corner of his mouth. Because it was rushed this time and he wasn't prepared, his magic barrier wasn't perfect. Although with the might of these 9 balls of light, it wasn't enough to seriously injure him, because the magic barrier didn't completely offset the might of the 9 balls of light. The shockwave came in and injured his internal organs. However, this wasn't what shocked him the most. What really shocked him and made him feel unsettled was that he couldn't understand no matter what. How could the other side accurately know where he would appear and attack ahead of time? But reality didn't give him time to think at all. After blocking the 9 balls of light with great difficulty, airship number 4 that was flying in the air also shot out a ball of light that flew right at Great Magician Randy's head. Great Magician Randy's expression changed. He didn't use the magic barrier to block it and disappeared again, using spatial magic to move away. But this time was no different from before. When Great Magician Randy appeared again, the magic airship that he had expected had already flown away, and what welcomed him were the 9 balls of light that weren't ordinary. It was a good thing that he was prepared this time. When he appeared in space, he had already opened a magic barrier, so he wasn't injured again. However, after using spatial magic twice and blocking several balls of light, he had used close to half of his magic power. Seeing the 10 magic airships that had already scattered, Great Magician Randy's eyes were filled with doubt. Just what were these things? It was fine if they could shoot balls of light that were equal to a 9th grade spell, but how could they know where he would teleport each time? Seeing the 2 balls of light coming at him, Great Magician Randy hesitated a bit. He didn't dare block it and dodged it. Seeing Great Magician Randy's actions, Hart on the magic airship raised a brow. "AI, this fellow finally knows how to dodge. Everyone listen to my orders, from now on, we'll change to Plan 2. Although Great Magician Randy had easily dodged the 2 balls of light with his speed, his heart was filled with shame. He was a respected great magician. Other than facing great magicians of the same level, when had he ever retreated? Now that he had been forced into such a sorry state by these 10 strange things, this was simply a great shame. Looking at the 10 magic airships in front of him, Great Magician Randy secretly made up his mind. No matter what the Duchess' reaction was, he would definitely destroy these things. However, when Great Magician Randy raised his hand and was about to gather his magic to use the high-level wind magic that he was most proficient in, the 10 magic airships in the distance suddenly shot out large amounts of flame-red balls of light. Great Magician Randy was instantly shocked. Although these flame-red balls of light were much smaller than the balls of light from before, they were densely packed and covered the sky. Looking at them, there were at least 100 of them. Moreover, these balls of light were a bit faster than the balls of light from before. Without giving Great Magician Randy any time to react, they had already arrived in front of him. Although Great Magician Randy tried his best to dodge with the wind magic that he was proficient in, these balls of light covered all the places he could dodge. In the end, he had no choice but to create a magic barrier and take the attacks of these balls of light. As he expected, these balls of light were much smaller and much weaker than the balls of light from before. They were around the power of a 7th grade spell. But even so, taking a dozen attacks in a row still consumed a lot of his mana. What surprised Great Magician Randy even more was that, after the 10 magic airships finished their attack, they didn't stop at all. They actually shot out over 100 balls of light again, not giving him any time to catch his breath at all. Hong, 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 countless explosions rang out in the sky. Great Magician Randy desperately dodged the balls of light while maintaining his magic barrier. Not to mention counterattacking, he didn't even have time to catch his breath. Feeling the magic in his body quickly being consumed, Great Magician Randy became more and more anxious. In this situation, he didn't have the ability to fight back at all. The only possible method of attacking with spatial magic was proven to be impossible. This meant that he couldn't fight back at all and could only passively take the hit. After recognizing this reality, Great Magician Randy felt incomparably humiliated. However, he knew that it was futile to continue like this. After dodging a few more balls of light and using a magic barrier to block a few balls of light that he couldn't dodge, Great Magician Randy let out a sigh of relief. He quickly gathered all his magic power and disappeared. After a while, he appeared in the sky again, but he was already 1,000 meters away from where the 2 sides were fighting. He didn't use spatial magic to attack the 10 magic airships this time, rather he directly escaped. Chapter 842. The continuous sounds of violent explosions were transmitted into the underground prison through the ground. Only the dull sounds of the explosions were left, which didn't sound as shocking. Great Magician Runa looked up at the thick stone wall above him and dug his ears without caring about his image. Then he asked Sui beside him, "Sir Chairman, shouldn't we be going out? Hart and the others have already started fighting with that fellow outside, so if they accidentally spread this area, I don't have confidence in protecting everyone here. We need to move faster." Sui nodded. He turned to look at the soldiers lying in the dungeon, and after thinking about it, he shouted to Akali, who was gathering all his subordinates, "Hey, Akali, you leave with Runa first. I'll stay behind and take these fellows out." Runa was surprised. "What are you taking these fellows out for? If they stay here and something happens, they might all die here." Runa curled his lips in disdain. "Che, it's fine if they die. These fellows dared to lock up our company's people for this long, we're already being merciful by not killing them all, why do we care about them? Our goal today is to save people, not to kill people," Sui said. Today's operation had been very smooth up to this point. First Runa appeared and attracted the attention of Great Magician Randy, who was guarding outside. Then Sue-Yi used this chance to enter the dungeon with a teleportation spell. Then Hart appeared with 10 magic airships to tie down Great Magician Randy, allowing Runa to enter the dungeon as well. With Sue-Yi and Runa, the two great magicians working together, although the guards in the dungeon were very tight, they couldn't react in time before they were all taken down. The reason why they chose to do this was to ensure the safety of Akali and the others who were captured. Otherwise, with the power that the new flyer sent this time, even if Count Dole had the support of Duchess Windsor, he definitely wouldn't be able to stop them. Not mentioning anything else, just Sue-Yi and Runa, these two great magicians, they were a powerful force that no one could resist. But this matter didn't end here after Akali's group appeared. Compared to saving people, Sue-Yi was more concerned about the various problems he would have to face after saving them. If it wasn't necessary, Sue-Yi wasn't willing to offend Duchess Windsor. Duke Windsor was a very influential person in the Canla Empire after all, so if he was dissatisfied, it would be a large hindrance to the new flyer's plan to enter the Canla Empire. Therefore, it was fine to save people, but not to kill. Hearing the determination in Sue-Yi's tone, Runa could only pout again and leave the dungeon to observe the situation outside. Akali had already gathered everyone and they were all standing in front of Sue-Yi. Although no one was injured, being locked in this dungeon that didn't see the light of day for several days had made everyone a bit tired. Only Akali was clearly a bit tired, but her eyes were filled with excitement. "Hey, Sir Chairman, what is the situation outside?" Sue-Yi looked at her in surprise. "Why do you care about the situation outside? Quickly pack up and prepare to leave. Could it be that after being locked in here for several days, you've developed feelings?" "How could that be possible?" Akali immediately protested. "I'm just very curious. This is the first time our company's magic airships have faced a great magician outside of our company, so I really want to know which aspect is stronger." As for today's rescue mission, Sue-Yi had already discussed it with Akali through the magic communication device. He had her secretly inform the other new flyer employees to prepare ahead of time, so Akali was very clear on today's plan. She was very clear that the 10 magic airships outside were used to restrain the great magician in charge of guarding. "Didn't you watch the guards practice many times before? Great Magician Runa was beaten by Captain Hart most of the time, so what are you curious about?" Sue-Yi asked back. "Every great magician is different. Although Captain Hart can beat Great Magician Runa, that doesn't mean they can beat the great magician outside. Speaking of this, President, I've advised you many times before to go and do a few battle drills with the guards, but you didn't agree even once. If they can even beat you to a pulp, I'll have a lot more confidence in them now." Sue-Yi snappily knocked Akali's head. "You want to see me being beaten to a pulp? Not to mention that I don't have time to practice with them. Even if I did, they wouldn't dare use their full strength against me. This wouldn't have the effect of the practice at all right?" Akali rubbed her head and tilted her head to think before nodding. That's right. Then, Sir Chairman, let's quickly leave. If Captain Hart and the others can't beat them, we can still help." Sue-Yi rolled his eyes at her. "How can you help in a battle between great magicians? Great Magician Runa is already out, so you don't need to worry about this. Quickly organize everyone and lead them out. There is a magic airship waiting for you outside. After you get on the magic airship, you'll be safe." "Oh." Akali nodded before obediently turning to leave. After Akali and the other rescued new flyer employees left the dungeon, Sue-Yi closed his eyes and activated his magic. There was a magic wave that came from his body that instantly filled every crack in the dungeon. In the range of his magic waves, all life forms couldn't escape his senses. This was the life detection magic he had learned from Elder Lasagna. It had been very useful in the rescue just now. Not long after, Sue-Yi accurately detected that there were no other human life forms hiding in the dungeon. With a wave of his hand, there was a whirlwind that lifted up the guards lying on the ground. They followed Sue to the exit of the dungeon. The hot sunlight at the exit made Sue narrow his eyes, allowing him to clearly see the situation in front of him. Akali and the other employees were nowhere to be seen. It was clear that they had left on the magic airship that had been prepared. Looking up, there were only white clouds and blue skies. Not to mention the magic airship, even Great Magician Randy, who should have been fighting Captain Hart's group, was nowhere to be seen. Before he came out of the dungeon, Sue hadn't heard any sounds from above, but now it seemed like the outcome had been decided. Since Captain Hart's group didn't send any special messages, they should have repelled the Great Magician and had safely retreated with the magic airship that was supposed to pick up Akali's group. Sue looked around and found that other than the several dozen people lying on the ground, it was completely calm. He placed the people he brought out of the dungeon under the shade of a tree before slowly heading to the residential area in the center of the manor. At this time, in the main hall of Count Dole's manor, it was already filled with chaos. Count Dole was anxiously pacing back and forth, looking at Duchess Windsor sitting in a chair with a dark look from time to time. He wanted to say something, but he was hesitating. Great Magician Randy sitting on the other side had a pale face and his head was slightly lowered. Although he was covering his mouth with his hand, he couldn't help giving soft coughs. Seeing the blood that came out of his hand, Count Dole couldn't suppress the panic in his heart and charged to Duchess Windsor's side. "Aunt, what do we do now? That Sue definitely won't let me go. You have to save me." Duchess Windsor knit her brows and raised her hand, slapping Count Dole's face. He couldn't help spinning from the slap. "What are you panicking for? I want to see how bold that Sue is. I'm sitting here. I don't believe he dares to make a move against me." Count Dole touched his burning face in a daze and said in a low voice that was about to cry, But he dared to make a move against the guards you brought. Moreover, he even..." Count Dole turned to look at Great Magician Randy, and Great Magician Randy gave a strong cough. Duchess Windsor's face sunk. Her eyes were filled with anger, but there was also a trace of unease. Although even now, she was certain that Sue didn't have the guts to make a move against her, what happened today was a bit out of her expectations and caught her a bit off guard. She thought that after Sue saw her supporting Count Dole, he wouldn't dare make a move. Moreover, Sue's performance 2 days ago proved this. But the Frestec Chamber of Commerce had suddenly made a move today. Not only had they made a move, they had acted with the force of thunder. The elite guards she brought couldn't fight back at all, allowing the Frestec Chamber of Commerce to easily save her subordinates. What surprised Duchess Windsor even more was that even Great Magician Randy couldn't stop the new flyer. Even he was injured in the fight with the new flyer. Although Great Magician Randy didn't talk about the details of his battle or how he was injured, based on the fact that he was injured and retreated, the Frestec Chamber of Commerce wasn't as weak as Duchess Windsor had thought. At least there was someone in their company who was stronger than Great Magician Randy. Thinking of this, Duchess Windsor suddenly knit her brows. She turned to Count Dole and asked, "Suruk, are you hiding something from me?" Count Dole was stunned. Seeing Duchess Windsor's sharp eyes, he couldn't help turning his head. Seeing his expression, Duchess Windsor was even more certain of her guess. She roared in a low voice, "Speak. What are you hiding from me? Were there other great magicians in the Frestec Chamber of Commerce?" Being questioned by Duchess Windsor like this, Count Dole knew that he couldn't hide, so he could only hesitantly answer, "Yes. Yes. There are great magicians in the new flyer and there's more than one. Other than that, there's more than one." Duchess Windsor flew into a rage. She stood up and glared at Count Dole, cutting off the latter half of his words. "Why didn't you say it earlier?" Count Dole kneeled down in front of Duchess Windsor and hugged her leg as he said with a tearful face, "Aunt, it's my fault, it's my fault. I didn't hide it from you on purpose, I just felt that he wouldn't dare make a move against you. I deserve to die. But But now… You! Duchess Windsor raised her hand and wanted to slap him again, but seeing Count Dole's crying face, she gave a sigh and endured it. When she was thinking about how to deal with this, one of Count Dole's personal guards suddenly charged in through the door. "Sir Count, that… Sue is here." Count Dole was stunned. He forgot to keep crying and turned to look at Duchess Windsor. Duchess Windsor took a deep breath and took out a handkerchief from her sleeve for Count Dole. "Wipe your face, what do you look like now?" After he finished speaking, he sat back down on the cold chair. His eyes were focused on his nose, and his nose was focused on his heart. He recovered his calm and composed appearance from before, and then he nodded lightly at the guard. "Let him in." Chapter 843. Sue walked into the hall with relaxed footstep. This was his second time entering the hall today. However, compared to the first time he entered the hall half a day ago, Sue was much more relaxed and there was a relaxed smile on his face. Seeing Duchess Windsor sitting in the middle of the hall and Count Dole sitting on the side, waiting for him without saying a word, Sue revealed a faint smile. He thought that the results of this negotiation would be completely different from before. "Greetings to the Duchess." Sue gave a bow to Duchess Windsor. Duchess Windsor didn't ignore him this time. After looking at him for a while, she gave a slight nod and reached her hand out. "Chairman Sue, please sit." Although her tone was calm, there was a trace of politeness in her words. Sue wasn't polite and sat down in the chair across from Count Dole. However, when he sat down, Duchess Windsor's expression suddenly changed and she said in a deep voice, "Chairman Sue, you really are bold." Sue blinked and his expression didn't change as he asked back, "Why does the madam say this? You actually led your subordinates to invade this place and even injured my subordinates. You are simply bold." Sue revealed a faint smile. "Madam, I don't understand what you mean. I did lead my subordinates to invade this place and injured your subordinates, but how is that related to my boldness?" Count Dole on the side had lowered his head to avoid looking at Sue, but after hearing this, he couldn't help looking up at Sue in surprise. Duchess Windsor also had a surprised look. "Chairman Sue, you clearly know my identity and you still dare to treat me like this, isn't this bold?" Sue stroked his chin and after thinking for a bit, he shook his head. "Madam, I still don't understand. Knowing your identity isn't related to my boldness, right?" Duchess Windsor angrily said. "Chairman Sue, you immediately retreated after knowing my identity yesterday. I thought that you were a smart person and knew that you couldn't offend me, but I never thought that you were such a stupid person." "No, madam, you're mistaken. I didn't say that I couldn't offend you yesterday. I chose to retreat because I felt that with your identity, you should have placed many defenses in the manner, and I wasn't confident in saving my subordinate. This isn't related to your identity and it's unrelated to my boldness." Duchess Windsor gave an angry smile. "This means that you think that you can offend me?" Sue didn't say anything with a smile. Although he didn't say anything, the meaning behind his expression couldn't be any clearer. Duchess Windsor's face sunk even more. She looked at Sue and there was a chill in her voice. "Chairman Sue, you're really not afraid? Since you know my identity, then you must know who is behind me. Treating me like this, aren't you afraid of my revenge? Or could it be that you're bold enough to kill me here?" Sue shook his head with a faint smile. "I really don't dare. Madam, I didn't kill a single person this time. I think this is enough to prove my attitude. To be honest, I'm not willing to offend you and the Lord Duke behind you. This isn't good for me or our new flyer." "It's good that you know." Hearing Sue admit this, Duchess Windsor felt a bit better. She gave a soft snort before continuing, "But Chairman Sue, since you've already done these things, you should know the consequences. I'm warning you, this matter won't end here, you better be prepared." Sue couldn't help shaking his head. thinking that this Duchess Windsor really couldn't see the situation clearly. That's right, this matter won't end here. Although my subordinates have been safely rescued, the main culprit of this matter hasn't received the punishment he deserves yet. Sui looked at Count Dole and Count Dole's eyes shrank. He then straightened his body and looked back at Sui as he said with a cold smile, "What? Chairman Su, you still dare move against me?" Duchess Windsor also gave a cold laugh. "Chairman Su, I thought that you were smart enough this time and didn't kill any of my subordinates, so I only gave you a small punishment. I never thought that you would dare cause trouble for Suruk. Are you seeking your own death?" Receiving Duchess Windsor's support, Count Dole was even more fearless. He stuck his chest out and slightly raised his head, pointing his chin at Sui, looking like he was saying, "Come and move against me if you have the guts." Sui's eyes moved from Duchess Windsor to Count Dole's face. With a smile, he raised his right hand and activated his magic. Ka ka ka. After a series of crisp sounds, Count Dole, who had been feeling smug just a moment ago, was suddenly covered in a thick layer of ice. In the blink of an eye, his entire body was frozen in ice. It was currently the summer season outside, and the weather was extremely hot. However, at this moment, a huge block of ice had suddenly appeared in the hall, and a motionless person in a strange posture was sealed within it. Coupled with the cold air emitted by the block of ice, the whole situation was extremely strange. Duchess Windsor was stunned as she watched this change. After being stunned for a bit, she gave a sharp scream. A few moments later, a middle-aged man in a pure white magician's robe rushed out from the back, surrounded by dozens of fully armed soldiers. Seeing them appear, Sui couldn't help smiling. It seemed like Duchess Windsor paid more attention to her own safety, leaving this many guards by her side. The middle-aged man in the pure white magician's robe saw Count Dole sealed in ice, and after focusing for a bit, he revealed a look of incomparable shock. This is the ice coffin spell. It seems like you know what's good for you." Sui looked at the symbol on his chest and said with a nod, "So you're already an 8th-grade magician, no wonder you can recognize this spell." The white-robed middle-aged magician turned his eyes from Count Dole to Sui with difficulty, and after a while, he said with difficulty, to be able to use the ice coffin spell, only a great magician can use it. You. Could it be that you're a great magician?" Sui gave a shrug. "That's right, I'm a great magician. Since you recognize this spell, you should know that you don't have the ability to break this ice coffin spell, and you don't have the ability to deal with me. So, move aside." "Great magician?" The white-robed middle-aged magician swallowed a mouthful of saliva as he stared right at Sui with a look of disbelief. This young man who looked to be around 30 years old actually had the strength of a great magician? This was impossible. The youngest great magician in the history of the Sorcerers' Guild was 43 years old. How could this fellow in front of him be this talented? Sui was too lazy to care about him and stood up. As soon as he stood up, the several dozen soldiers moved together and quickly surrounded him. "Don't let him run!" Duchess Windsor shouted. The soldiers wanted to make a move, but they found that there was a thick layer of ice under their feet that connected their feet to the ground, so they couldn't move at all. Sui didn't even look at them. He softly tapped on the ice that sealed Count Dole, and a deep black hole appeared, swallowing the ice and Count Dole together. The white-robed middle-aged magician in a daze on the side swallowed a mouthful of saliva. Duchess Windsor finally remembered him and shouted at him, "Nunos, what are you doing? Why aren't you making a move?" The white-robed middle-aged magician called Nunos turned back and looked at Duchess Windsor with a tearful expression. "Madam, he is a great magician. So what if he's a great magician? You're afraid he'll really make a move against you? Go for me. With me here, he definitely won't dare," Duchess Windsor angrily said. Nunos could only turn back and look at Sui with the same tearful expression. "Your Excellency." Please forgive me, I didn't mean to offend you. Sui nodded. This is what you should do, you don't need to ask for my forgiveness. Many thanks for your Excellency's understanding. Nunos gave a grateful nod. He took a deep breath and raised his hands with a serious expression. Feeling the powerful magic gathered in his hands, Sui had a trace of praise in his heart. Judging from the level of an 8th grade magician, this Nuno's magic strength and purity weren't bad. It could be seen that he was among the best of the 8th grade magicians and could be considered a very good high-grade magician. After that, Nuno shook his hands and a giant light blue ring appeared in front of him. Seeing this ring, Sui had a look of surprise on his face. Hurricane ring? Not bad, as an 8th grade magician, you can actually use a 9th grade wind spell. It seems like you're not far from becoming a 9th grade magician. There was a blush on Nuno's face. It was unknown if it was because he was shy from being praised by Sui or if it was because he was using all his strength to gather magic. 2 breaths later, Nonosiris pushed his hands forward slightly. The cyan ring in front of him suddenly enlarged several times. The highest point of the ring could almost touch the ceiling of the hall, almost covering the entire cross-section of the hall. Then, cyan light flashed in the ring, and countless wind blades that could be seen by the naked eye shot out at the same time. Sui stood there without moving, casually putting up a water magic barrier in front of him. The wind blades covered the sky as they hit the magic barrier, but it was like a clay ox entering the sea. There were only ripples on the surface of the magic barrier, but there wasn't any other reaction. The wind blades persisted for a full 3 minutes. Finally, no more wind blades appeared within the cyan ring. The entire cyan ring flickered twice before disappearing. Sui looked at Nuno's pale face that didn't have a trace of blood in it and said with a faint smile, "You've reached your limit?" Nuno sat down on the ground and took 2 deep breaths before saying, "Limit. Limit, all right." Sui removed the magic barrier with a smile. You can use a 9th grade spell like the Hurricane Ring, which means that you have a deep understanding of wind magic. There is hope for you to become a 9th grade magician in a short period of time. Moreover, being able to use this spell means that you have some understanding of space, which will be very helpful to you becoming a great magician in the future. Keep working hard. Although Sui was at least 10 years younger than Nunos, when Sui used the tone of a senior to lecture Nunos, he didn't show any disgust, rather he nodded in gratitude. "Thank you for your Excellency's guidance, I will definitely remember it." Sui smiled and ignored him, turning to look at Duchess Windsor, who had an ugly look on her face. "Madam, Count Dole has violated the laws of the duchy, so he will be judged and punished. As for you and your subordinates, I hope that you can leave as soon as possible, because according to the laws, this place no longer belongs to Count Dole. You and your subordinates are not citizens of the Principality of Constantine, so you don't have the right to stay here." Duchess Windsor's expression turned cold. "What? You still have the guts to chase us away?" Sui revealed a faint smile and didn't reply. He turned to pat the shoulder of Nunos, who was sitting on the ground, and said in a low voice, "If you're interested, the new flyer welcomes you at any time." Nunos looked up in surprise, but he found that Sui had already disappeared. Chapter 844. Sir Chairman, didn't you say that you didn't want to completely offend Duchess Windsor? I did say that, but I haven't completely offended her yet, right? You clearly beat up her subordinates and humiliated her. How can this not be considered completely offending her? I didn't kill her subordinates. As for humiliating her, I won't lose a piece of flesh, so how can this be considered completely offending her? All right, Sir Chairman, even if you barely manage to not completely offend her, aren't you afraid of offending Duke Windsor by doing this? If Duchess Windsor goes back and tells Duke Windsor about what happened here, aren't you worried that Duke Windsor will be angry? If Duke Windsor is a smart person, I won't be offending him like this. He should be able to see the most important problem in this matter. But if Duke Windsor isn't that smart, that is also very good. This means that he isn't suitable for us to cooperate with, so it doesn't matter if we offend him or not. Sir Chairman, although I don't understand what you're saying, it sounds very powerful. But offending Duke Windsor, wouldn't that offend the Canlampire? You're not worried that it will affect our company's progress in the Canlampire? Let's be clear, Duke Windsor is Duke Windsor and the Canlampire is the Canlampire. Offending Duke Windsor and offending the Canla Empire are two different things. If things develop according to my expectations and we really offend Duke Windsor, it will be a great help to our company entering the Canla Empire. Sir Chairman, I don't understand what you're saying. I just know that what you're saying now is clearly different from what you said before. The reason is very simple. It's because I changed my mind. Sue-E and Akali's conversation continued until the magic airship stopped at the New Flight Commerce main base. After getting off the magic airship, Akali and the other New Flyer employees were arranged to rest and make up for their experiences over the past few days. When they left, Akali looked at Sue-E with eyes filled with doubt. When Sue-E talked about his analysis and speculations on the magic airship, Akali didn't understand a single thing. But without knowing why, she felt that it sounded very powerful, so she was still filled with confidence in Sue-E. Of course, Sue-E's actions were hard for many people to understand, but in the end, he proved how powerful he was, so Akali's confidence in him. After taking care of the rescued people, Sue-E had Captain Hal pick several guards to escort Count Dole to the Stantine Duchy's Congress, preparing to let him be tried. Although Sue-E's assessed this, Cohen SS to Count TSS, Sue-E didn't care about this at all. Anyway, this fellow's use had ended here, so it wasn't important what happened to him. What was important was the effects of this matter. After sending off Count S, Sue-E immediately gathered all the high-level members of the New Flyer and held a meeting. A week later, the New Flyer announced a new round of recruitment for the New Flyer Guards, with a temporary quota of 1,000 people. Although the New Flyer Guards had been recruiting intermittently, there weren't that many people recruited each time. Normally it was around 100, with the highest being 300. So up until now there were only 5,000 people in total. This time, the recruitment of 1,000 people in one go immediately attracted the attention of countless people. Countless adventurers who were already drooling over the excellent treatment enjoyed by the New Flyer Guards were naturally very concerned about this. They couldn't wait to join the New Flyer and get rid of the dangerous adventuring life. They could live a comfortable life that could make them stronger. However, the New Flyer Guards' recruitment requirements were extremely strict. Not only did they have high requirements for the candidates' physical fitness, but more importantly, they also had strict requirements for their character. The most important requirement was absolute loyalty to the Frestec Chamber of Commerce. So it was impossible for adventurers with bad records to succeed in applying for this job. Just this point alone had already filtered out more than half of the candidate. Those who could be selected in the end were the best of the best. Compared to the adventurers who paid more attention to the individual, the ones who paid the most attention to this recruitment were the surrounding countries. Although the Frestec Chamber of Commerce's guards couldn't compare to the armies of the surrounding countries, in terms of battle strength, there wasn't a single country that dared to say that they could win. Because the New Flyer Guards were equipped with a full set of New Flyer's self-made military magic machines, many of which were not announced to the public by the New Flyer, let alone sold. So in fact, the combat strength of the New Flyer Guards was likely to exceed everyone's expectations and couldn't be underestimated. This time, the New Flyer recruited 1,000 guards in one go. If all of them were capable of fighting, it meant that the strength of the New Flyer Guards would increase by a lot. This was a hidden threat to the surrounding countries. Of course, with the new flyer's strong influence on the surrounding countries, it was impossible for the other countries to get rid of the new flyer, so it was basically impossible for them to fight the new flyer. But for so many years, the new flyer hadn't shown any ambition in this aspect. Now that it suddenly appeared, did it mean that Sui had suddenly changed his mind? At the same time, Count Dole was being tried in the court of the Principality of Constantine. He was sentenced to life imprisonment for maliciously kidnapping the new flyer's subordinates, suspected of colluding with foreign forces, and deliberately resisting and obstructing the various policies enacted by the Congress. At the same time, he was stripped of his noble status, and all his private property was taken back. Before Count Dole was put on trial, the news about him had already spread throughout the Principality of Constantine. After he was really sentenced, although many people in the Principality felt that the new flyer was too overbearing in this matter, no one dared to raise any objections. And the nobles who resisted the various policies and measures implemented by the Congress like Count Dole had all become obedient after hearing the result of Count Dole's trial. The magic communication network in the Principality was incomparably smooth, and there were no more obstructions. In just half a month, the magic signal towers in the first phase of the magic communication network project were all finished. Now they just needed to make adjustments to the magic signals, and they would be able to cover all the magic signals. This meant that as long as you were in the Principality of Constantine, you could hold a magic communicator anywhere in the Principality of Constantine, and you could talk to anyone holding a magic communicator anywhere in the Principality of Constantine. Although because of the limitations of the magic communication technology, it was far from reaching the level of wireless communication on Earth. For this world where communication was based on shouting, this was already a qualitative leap. Other than these two open matters, in a hidden situation, the new flyer had chosen a large and desolate place in the depths of the Black Rice Wasteland near the border of the Principality of Constantine to begin building a military magic machine production base. Before this, because of Su Yi's insistence, the new flyer only had less than 10 military magic machine factories, so their production capacity wasn't high. Moreover, they were only supplied to the Lampari Kingdom, the Kingdom of Ruhr, and the Drake Duchy. There were only a few of them, so they could supply them. But now, according to the initial plan, this military magic machine production base would produce over 20 military magic machine factories. At the same time, there would be a military magic machine research center that specialized in researching various kinds of military magic machines. This change, even the people inside the new flyer didn't know much about it, so it didn't attract too much attention. It was drowned out by all the other news. Among the news that drowned it out, there was another piece of news that was paid more attention to in the Principality of Constantine than the Principality of Constantine's court on Count Dole. It was only second to the public recruitment of the new flyer guards. This piece of news was paid more attention to in other countries than in the Principality of Constantine, even in the giant Canla Empire. The third prince of the Canla Empire, His Highness Frank de Boer, had announced that he was very interested in the Shinfei magic sedan race that New Flyer was organizing in the Principality of Constantine, the Lampari Kingdom, and the Kingdom of Ruhr, so he welcomed New Flyer to bring this race to the Canla Empire. Once this news was spread, it created a large stir. Although His Highness Frank de Boer was only the third prince of the Canla Empire, the Canla Empire still hadn't decided on a crown prince. His Highness Frank's prestige in the Canla Empire was very high, so he had always been considered a strong competitor for the crown prince. This kind of important person, he had great prestige and influence in the Canla Empire, so he wasn't normal in the small southwest countries like Signs. But now he had made such a clear statement, even mentioning the New Flyer by name. Although he was only interested in New Flyer's magic sedan race, being able to receive the recognition of such an important person was without a doubt a great opportunity for the New Flyer. Almost everyone was certain that the new flyer's path into the Canla Empire would be smooth from now on. Chapter 845. Gurat City was in the center of the southern province of the Canla Empire. It was around 2,300 kilometers away from the new flight commerce main base. As the capital of the southern province of the Canla Empire, Gurat City was naturally the center of the southern province. The governor manor of the southern province was located slightly north of the center of Gurat City. It occupied a large area of over 8,000 square meters, larger than any other building in the city. The front yard of the governor's manor was where Governor Duke Elman Windsor worked. It was currently morning and Duke Windsor and the other officials of the governor's manor were all busy working. Only Duke Windsor was in his personal room. Purring! A loud muffled sound suddenly rang out in the spacious room, shaking the people in the nearby rooms to hear it clearly. Everyone looked in the direction of the sound in a daze, and there was a trace of unease on their faces. Who made the Lord Governor this angry? Could it be that they wanted to die? The Canla Empire's southern province's Governor Duke Elman Windsor let out a deep breath. He looked at the letter he slapped on the table before looking up at his subordinate and asking in a cold voice, "When the Principality of Constantine replied to this letter, did they say anything else?" The subordinate lowered his head even more. They didn't. Other than this letter, the Principality of Constantine didn't say anything else. Duke Windsor gave a strong cold snort. "Are you looking down on me? A small Principality of Constantine, how bold!" Hearing this angry roar, the subordinate lowered his head again and his waist was almost completely bent. After a while, Duke Windsor waved his hand. "You can leave." It was like the subordinate had been pardoned, quickly bowing to Duke Windsor before quickly leaving. After the subordinate left, Duke Windsor looked at the letter again and couldn't help giving another cold snort. "Lord Duke, it seems like the Principality of Constantine didn't agree to your request?" A deep and sinister voice suddenly came from the corner of the room. Duke Windsor wasn't surprised by this voice at all. With a flick of his finger, the letter flew to the corner where the voice came from. "Take a look for yourself." A figure suddenly walked out from the corner that originally seemed to be empty. He raised his hand and easily caught the reply letter. After opening it and reading it, he let out a chuckle. This Principality of Constantine really is bold. It's fine if they don't agree to the Lord Duke's request, but they actually dared to use such impolite words. It seems like they're quite confident. The figure that suddenly appeared was dressed in a plain, light gray robe. His face looked like a very ordinary middle-aged man. His hairstyle and dressing were also very ordinary like him. If he was thrown into a crowd, it was guaranteed that no one would give him a second glance. But standing in front of Duke Windsor, he looked very relaxed and didn't look unnatural at all. Hearing his words, Duke Windsor gave another cold snort. This Principality of Constantine doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. A mere principality dares to go against my will. I really don't know how such a small country can survive until now. No. Your Excellency, you're mistaken. The one who is truly confident isn't the Principality of Constantine, but the new flyer who supports it. The middle-aged man shook his head and smiled. Frestec Chamber of Commerce? Although this new flyer was able to repel Great Mage Randy, and their strength is indeed surprising, what right do they have to support the Principality of Constantine? What right do they have to give the Principality of Constantine the courage to reject my request? Speaking of the reason, the middle-aged man suddenly looked around before his eyes fell onto a wall beside Duke Windsor. He pointed at the wall and said, "Duke's people, please look over there." Duke Windsor was surprised. He looked in the direction he was pointing and saw a long metal box hanging on the wall. "Your Excellency, do you know what this is?" Duke Windsor knit his brows to think. "This was bought by the servants last month. It seems to be called magic." Right, the magic air conditioner. This thing is quite easy to use, hanging it here, the entire room is quite cool. What? Is it related to what we just discussed? Of course. Do you know which company made this magic air conditioner? Duke Windsor was surprised. Could it be that it was made by the New Flyer? That's right. The middle-aged man nodded with a faint smile before raising his arm to point at the ceiling. Not only the magic air conditioner, the large magic lamp above your head, if nothing unexpected happens, it should also be a product of the New Flyer. Moreover, if I'm not wrong, Your Excellency should have a magic stove, a magic refrigerator, a magic rice cooker, and other magic machines in your manor, right? Duke Windsor was stunned. After thinking for a bit, he replied, It seems like there are these things. But I never care about these things, so I'm not certain. What? Could it be that you want to tell me that these things were also made by that damn New Flyer? No, I'm not certain that they were all made by the New Flyer, because there are many other companies that make these things. The middle-aged man said with a faint smile, but I'm certain that the appearance of these things can't be separated from the New Flyer. Duke Windsor looked at his most trusted advisor in a confused manner. Challen, just what do you want to say? Lord Duke, I want you to understand that the New Flyer already controls the Principality of Constantine, so the will of the New Flyer is the will of the Principality of Constantine. This time the Principality of Constantine's reply to you is this strong, which means that this is the will of the New Flyer. Or to be more direct, this is the will of their chairman Sui. And then? Duke Windsor slightly knit his brows. Even if this is the will of the New Flyer, so what? Although based on what you said and the madam's experience in the Principality of Constantine, the strength of the New Flyer has surpassed my expectations. But I don't think this is a reason for me to worry about them. Of course I don't think you need to worry about them, rather I hope that you can pay more attention to them. We can even use this chance to obtain even more benefits. Challen said with a smile. Duke Windsor had a thought. You mean that we should swallow the New Flyer? Challen gave Duke Windsor a gesture of praise. Lord Duke, you really are wise. But before this, you need to pay attention to something. What is it? Challen took out a newspaper from his chest and gave it to Duke Windsor. Duke Windsor took a look and his expression changed slightly. How is His Highness Frank related to the Frestec Chamber of Commerce? That's not important. Sharon smiled and shook his head. Challen shook his head with a smile. The important thing is that this is a chance for us. As long as we can make it so that the New Flyer can't fulfill Prince Frank's wishes, I think Prince Nalian will be very happy to see Prince Frank lose all face. Duke Windsor thought about it before breaking out in laughter. Good, 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 this is indeed a good chance. It seems like I have to change my plans from before. I just wanted to teach this Frestec Chamber of Commerce a lesson, helping the madam vent her anger, and also saving her useless nephew. Now it seems like we have to make a good plan. Hearing what Duke Windsor said, the smile on Challen's face disappeared and his expression became serious. Lord Duke, according to the information I've gathered, I have to remind you, you mustn't look down on this New Flyer. Although the New Flyer only has a few thousand guards, it's said that because they are equipped with the military magic machines developed by the New Flyer, their battle strength is shocking. If we don't treat this seriously, it will bring us quite a bit of trouble. Duke Windsor gave a cold laugh. It's just a company from a small duchy. Even if it's strong enough to control the entire Principality of Constantine, what does it count for? Not to mention this New Flyer, even the entire Principality of Constantine can be destroyed with a wave of my hand. There's no need to worry. Challen wanted to say a few more words of advice, but seeing the expression on Duke Windsor's face, he knew that Duke Windsor wouldn't listen to his advice, so he could only give up. After pausing for a moment, Sharon continued, Sir Duke, I think that since this operation is aimed at Prince Frank, we can get in touch with Prince Narian. If we can obtain his help, not only will our operation be smoother, we can also deepen our relationship with Prince Nalian. This is killing two birds with one stone. Duke Windsor was silent for a bit before waving his hand. No, we can only do this matter ourselves. The situation isn't clear now. We can show goodwill to Prince Nalian, but directly connecting with him is a big taboo. If we make His Majesty unhappy, the gains won't make up for the losses. Also, if this new flyer really is a piece of fat meat like you said, why should we give it to others? Sharon immediately understood what he meant. Although among the princes, Duke Windsor was leaning toward supporting Prince Nalian as the southern province's governor, his actions were too eye-catching and he couldn't act rashly. So unless it was necessary, it was impossible for him to clearly show his support. All right, Lord Duke, I hope that I can take full responsibility for this operation. Duke Windsor was a bit surprised. He looked at the serious Challen and couldn't help saying with a smile, "You really care quite a bit about this new flyer. All right, since you're willing, then you can take responsibility." "Yes, Lord Duke, I will definitely give the new flyer to you." Duke Windsor gave a slight nod with a faint smile. Chapter 846. It wasn't just Duke Windsor who wanted to take the new flyer, the Marquis of Southgard was one of them. Summer was about to pass and the wheat on the Marquis of Southgard's territory in the southeast part of the Mala Empire had already matured, entering the autumn harvest stage. At this time in the past, no matter what important matters the Marquis of Southgard had, he would put them aside for now and stay in his territory, preparing for the autumn harvest. Although he didn't need to personally do anything or take on much work, as a lord, he had to place great importance on this work, and couldn't slack off at all. Food was the foundation of all the countries in the signs, it was the most important thing. From the incomparably honorable emperor to the lowest slave, they had to go all out when it came to the harvest. They had to do their best to harvest even a single grain. Filling one's stomach, this was the basic need of humans. In front of this, nothing else mattered. The atmosphere on the Marquis of Southgard's territory in the past would have been very tense because everyone knew that the autumn harvest was precious and they had to seize every second. Otherwise, if they missed this time, there would be a problem with the autumn harvest, which would have a very serious impact. The atmosphere on the Marquis of Southgard's territory this year was very tense, but it was different from the past. The tension in the past was because of the intense work that was about to begin, but the tension this year was because of the uncertainty of the unknown. Seeing the strange Shinfei brand agricultural magic machines moving through the fields, causing the wheat to fall one by one, including the Marquis of Southgard, everyone's hearts were raised as they looked at the fields without blinking. These strange machines, could it really be like the new flyer said, magically taking care of all the harvesting work in an instant? Although the Marquis of Southgard had gone to the Kandra Duchy, the Lampari Kingdom, and the Principality of Constantine to investigate, he had never seen the agricultural magic machines harvest before, so he was a bit nervous. But he wasn't just nervous about the fall harvest on his territory. Because even if the fall harvest failed this time, he had already reached an agreement with the Lampari Kingdom and the new flyer, importing 3,000 tons of wheat from the Lampari Kingdom and 1,000 tons of rice and wheat from the new flyer. This grain was enough for everyone in his territory to not have to worry about food for at least 5 years, so he wasn't worried about food at all. Relatively speaking, he was nervous because this was the first time the Shinfei brand agricultural magic machines were harvesting in the Mala Empire, so it had a large significance. If the harvest wasn't good this time, it would make the other nobles shrink back. This would affect his plan with the new flyer to promote the other magic machines of the new flyer. But based on the current situation and the relaxed smile on Chairman Cantona's face, everything should be going smoothly and there shouldn't be any problems. Perhaps he noticed the Marquis of Southgard's gaze, Chairman Cantona looked away from the agricultural magic machines in the fields and turned to the Marquis of Southgard with a laugh. Sir Marquis, be assured. Our company has taken this job countless times over the years, so there definitely won't be a problem. Chairman Southgard gave a slight nod. Since Sue dared to recommend the Cantona Chamber of Commerce, there shouldn't be any problems. However, at this time, there was a magic harvester in the field that suddenly stopped with a sound. The Marquis of Southgard was stunned. When he wanted to say something, Chairman Cantona charged out and walked to the side of the magic harvester. He slapped the head of the young driver who came out and scolded, "Idiot! I already had you check the machine for me, but you actually broke the chain for me today. Quickly fix it for me, do you hear me?" The young driver rubbed his head and revealed a simple smile. He leaned over to check it before casually saying, "It's nothing big, it's just that the chain is stuck." Chairman Cantona gave a soft kick to his, but that was sticking up because he was leaning over. "Then quickly fix it for me, there are many people waiting." I'll be done right away." Chairman Cantona came back while cursing. He met the Marquis of Southgard's strange gaze and said with an embarrassed smile, "Sir Marquis, we are rough people, we've made a fool of ourselves." The Marquis of Southgard shook his head before suddenly asking in a curious voice, "Chairman Cantona, the fall harvest is about to begin, and you as the chairman have brought all these people here to harvest. What about the Lampari Kingdom and the other countries that need you to harvest?" "That's simple, the fall harvest is over a month away. After we're done here, we'll just put these machines on the large transport trucks and bring them back, there's still time." The Marquis of Southgard turned to look at the large transport magic cars in the distance and thought that this really was convenient. The Cantona Chamber of Commerce had used these large transport magic cars to transport people and agricultural magic machines from the Lampari Kingdom. Although they had been delayed for 2 days because of the Mala Empire's road problems, they had only spent less than a week on the road. Compared to the 2,000 kilometers between the two places, this time really wasn't considered much. If this was before when there were only horse carriages and no roads, 2,000 kilometers was like the horizon that couldn't be stopped at all. Thinking of this, the Marquis of Southgard couldn't help feeling emotional. The various magic machines produced by the new flyer had really changed people's lives in ways that they couldn't imagine before. Just with the magic cars, it had shortened the distance between people by quite a bit. It was a good thing that the road in the southwest province of the Mala Empire was already half finished, so the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce promised that it would be finished by the end of the year. When this road was finished, at least it would be much faster to go from Marquis Southgard's territory to the southwest countries. The Marquis of Southgard had already made his decision. As long as the Cantona Chamber of Commerce could prove that using the Shinfei brand agricultural magic machines could greatly increase the efficiency of the fall harvest, the first thing he would do next was to propose to the Parliament to build large amounts of roads in the Empire. The magic harvester that had stopped because of the malfunction was quickly fixed by the young driver. There were 10 magic harvesters that worked together, moving across the fields on the Marquis of Southgard's territory. It didn't take long for the granary to be filled up. When the people guarding the fields saw the magic harvester open the granary and saw the dark brown wheat that had been plucked come pouring down like waves, they all opened their mouths in shock. How was this possible? These wheat grains were clearly growing in the fields just a moment ago. How did they turn into wheat grains after being sucked in by these strange machines? Not only did they not need people to harvest, dry, grind, or dust them, the entire process was ridiculously short. Could it be that this was the power of magic? This was too amazing. An old farmer who looked to be around 60 years old was stunned for a while before suddenly calling out in shock, "Oh my God! Where did the wheat straw go?" The surrounding people were stunned for a moment. Only then did they notice that after the harvest, there were only clumps of thread-like weeds in the wheat field. There was no complete wheat straw left at all. Everyone's expressions changed. The wheat straw was a very important tool for old farmers, so without it, it would be a large loss. Seeing the Marquis of Southgard's doubtful gaze, Chairman Cantona resisted the urge to reveal a look of disdain. With a smile, he explained, "The wheat straw has already been cut up by the magic harvester, so if you really want to use it, you can use it to make a fire after it's dried, and it won't affect anything." The Marquis of Southgard looked at the situation in the field and nodded, showing his agreement. The other farmers thought about it and reluctantly accepted Chairman Cantona's word. Chairman Cantona looked at the looks of pity on the faces of the surrounding people, and he finally couldn't help saying, "Sir Marquis, the people of your territory, do you really want to use wheat straw to make a fire?" The Marquis of Southgard and the surrounding people looked at him in surprise. Chairman Cantona gave a soft cough before continuing, "Sir Marquis, a magic stove costs less than 4 gold coins, it's much more convenient to use. Moreover, you don't need to burn anything and there's no air pollution. No matter how you look at it, it's much better than burning wheat straw, rice straw, or firewood, right? Less than 4 gold coins for one?" The Marquis of Southgard's lips couldn't help twitching. He had been to the Lampari Kingdom and the other countries before, so of course he knew that in these countries, there were many families that had seen the magic stove. He had even bought some himself and was using them in his manor, so he knew how convenient the magic stove was. But one shouldn't look at how easily Chairman Cantona said it. A magic stove cost less than 4 gold coins, but for most of the people in his territory, 4 gold coins wasn't a small number. In his territory, the annual income of most of his people was probably only 10 or so gold coins. Being able to fill their stomachs was already quite good, so how could they have 4 gold coins to buy a magic stove? But thinking of what Sui said before about the factories set up by New Flyer and the other companies, the workers they recruited would have a minimum wage of no less than 5 gold coins a month. The Marquis of Southgard immediately felt that 4 gold coins wasn't that hard to accept. But thinking about it, this Chairman Cantona in front of him had said last time that among the workers of the Cantona Chamber of Commerce, the highest monthly wage was 30 gold coins. The difference between the two was quite large. This is the difference in development. The Marquis of Southgard gave a sigh in his heart. He was once again determined to develop the magic machine industry in his territory. Chapter 847. The Malar Empire was one of the 2 empires of the continent, with a large territory. The territories of the nobles under them were naturally much bigger than the territories of the nobles of a small country like the Lampari Kingdom. On the Marquis of Southgard's territory, there was over 500 hectares of farmland for this fall harvest, which far surpassed the territories of any nobles in the Lampari Kingdom. However, after a week, when all the farmland on the Marquis of Southgard's territory was harvested, there was only a measly 600 tons of wheat in the end. Based on the average yield, it was only a measly 150 pounds per moo. Compared to the current yield of over 500 pounds per moo in the Lampari Kingdom and the Principality of Constantine, it wasn't worth mentioning at all. This large difference, other than the backward farming methods on the Marquis of Southgard's territory, limiting the yield, the most important reason was the lack of fertilizer. But even with this yield, it made everyone in the Marquis of Southgard's territory, from the Marquis of Southgard himself to the slaves participating in the harvest, all of them were very happy. They all said that this year would be a good harvest. The more important thing was that to harvest the 500 hectares of farmland in the past, even if everyone in the territory worked together, it would take at least a month of hard work. If there were any small obstacles, they would need to extend this time. Before this, on the Marquis of Southgard's territory, there had been several times where they couldn't harvest on time, causing quite a bit of grain to be wasted. Now, with the help of the Cantona Chamber of Commerce, in just a single week, the 500 hectares of grain had been harvested. This amount of time was simply unbelievable. Moreover, during this time, the amount of manpower they used was shocking. Every time they harvested before, almost everyone in the territory would come out. But this time, from beginning to end, the Marquis of Southgard had only sent out 80 people to help with the harvest. Their main job was to open the bags and wait for the wheat to roll out of the magic harvester before carrying it to the transport magic car by the side of the field. Compared to the tedious and tiring work they had to do before, this time it was simply too easy for them. When Chairman Cantona told the Marquis of Southgard that it wasn't hard to harvest the 500 hectares of farmland, the Marquis of Southgard didn't dare believe it. After a week, seeing all the farmland being harvested and the several hundred tons of wheat being stored in the warehouse, the Marquis of Southgard's heart was filled with shock. It was no wonder when he went to the Drake Duchy, the Lampari Kingdom, and the Principality of Constantine, he saw all the farmland being reclaimed and planted of various kinds of crops. At that time, he found it strange because he didn't believe that there would be enough people in these 3 countries to complete the cultivation of these farmlands. Now of Southgard, of Southgard the Marquis of Southgard. So the day after the harvest, the Marquis of Southgard specially held a large banquet to celebrate the fall harvest. At this banquet, the Marquis of Southgard signed a new contract with Chairman Cantona in front of everyone. The content of this contract was something that Sue had mentioned to the Marquis of Southgard before. It was to have the Cantona Chamber of Commerce help the Marquis of Southgard develop the land on his territory. They would transform the existing farmland, making it easier to farm, while also opening up more farmland. But the Marquis of Southgard hadn't personally seen this before, so he was a bit hesitant. Now that he had experienced the fall harvest, he no longer had any doubt. This time, he had signed a 5-year contract with the Cantona Chamber of Commerce. In these 5 years, the Cantona Chamber of Commerce would not only help the Marquis of Southgard develop all the farmland on his territory, they would also help him train some people who were skilled in using the agricultural magic machines. When he saw the magic harvester easily turn the wheat stalks into grains, the Marquis of Southgard had already made his decision. He had to buy some agricultural magic machines from the new flyer and work hard to learn how to farm. When the Cantona Chamber of Commerce was helping the Marquis of Southgard with the harvest on his territory, there were some nobles from the Mala Empire that were close to the Marquis of Southgard who had sent people to visit. With the amazing performance of the Cantona Chamber of Commerce during the harvest, these nobles all sent invitations to the Cantona Chamber of Commerce, hoping that the Cantona Chamber of Commerce would help them with the harvest. Chairman Cantona naturally warmly welcomed them, but it was a pity that the Cantona Chamber of Commerce's manpower and agricultural magic machines were limited, so it was hard for him to accept all of them. In the end, he chose a few nobles that were close to the Marquis of Southgard to accept. As for the other nobles, he gave them a clear path, which was to buy various agricultural magic machines from the new flyer. So when the fall harvest began, orders from the Malar Empire flew to the new flyer that was several thousand kilometers away. Sir Chairman, this number of orders is a bit unexpected. Kennard picked up the report in his hand and said to Sue in a surprised voice, "Look, I've counted the orders from the Marlow Empire in the past few days and found that just in terms of the magic harvester, there are over 700 orders. This number is even more than the magic harvesters in the Principality of Constantine." Of course, the Malar Empire isn't a small country like our Principality of Constantine, it's one of the 2 empires on the continent. 700 is just the beginning. If we keep this momentum, I think that we'll be selling 7,000 magic harvesters to the Mala Empire in the future, or even more. Sue said with a smile. Kennard gave a slight nod and couldn't help giving a sigh of praise. Being able to enter the Malar Empire really is great. The surrounding countries are still too small, so the market is close to saturation. For example, there hasn't been much demand for agricultural magic machines in the past 2 years. Now that the Mala Empire is joining us, we can strengthen this work. After saying this, Kennard looked at Sui with a thoughtful look in his eyes. Sir Chairman, tell me, since the agricultural magic machines bring such great benefits, why don't we use them to knock on the doors of the Kanla Empire? I think that there isn't a country on the continent that can reject a method that can allow their farmland to produce more food. Sui shook his head. This isn't the same. The reason why we can develop smoothly in the Mala Empire is mainly because the Marquis of Southgard is an understanding person. He is friendly to us, so our cooperation is smooth. But the Kanla Empire... Sui knit his brows with a bit of dissatisfaction. I don't know if it's my prejudice, but I feel that the people of this country are naturally arrogant, which makes our cooperation with them filled with obstacles. I don't like the attitude of the people of the Kanla Empire. It makes me feel that they don't have any sincerity in cooperating with us. Kennard gave a bitter laugh before saying with a nod, Sir Chairman, this isn't your misconception. Actually, arrogance has always been a characteristic of the Kanla Empire. This empire has always thought of itself as the ruler of the continent, looking down on other countries. This is a bit related to the history of the Kanla Empire, Sir Chairman. You can look up their history when you have time. I don't have time to look up their history. Sui gave a shrug. If they insist on this arrogant attitude, the one who will suffer in the end is themselves. Moreover, you should know that I have already revised my plan to promote the Kanla Empire. I understand. But Sir Chairman, are you really going to do this? Kennard slightly knit his brows. I feel that doing this will be very dangerous. If we aren't careful, the entire new flyer might be seriously damaged. You think too highly of the Kanla Empire. Sui revealed a faint smile as he patted Kennard's shoulder. Do your things properly. I'll go and see how the guards are doing. Whether my plan succeeds or not depends on them. Kennard gave a slight nod. There was still a trace of worry in his eyes as he watched Sui leave. When Sui left his office, Kennard sat down again and prepared to continue his work. Now that the new flyer was involved in a wide range of industries, there were many things that needed to be taken care of. Although after the reorganization last time, the new flyer had already divided the various industries under its name and each department had its own management staff, making it much easier for him as the CEO. But with how big the new flyer was, there were many things that he needed to take care of as the CEO. When he was preparing to arrange for the magic machine department to take care of the Mala Empire's order for agricultural magic machines, there was suddenly someone knocking on the door. Kennard frowned slightly when he heard the rapid and violent knocks on the door. Come in. The door was suddenly pushed open, and a middle-aged man rushed in front of the desk, tightly holding a letter in his hand as he handed it to Kennard. Sir, something big has happened. This middle-aged man was the director in charge of information gathering in the new flyer. Seeing his expression, Kennard's face sunk a bit as he took the letter. After reading the letter, Kennard's eyes opened wide as they were filled with surprise. There was even a trace of unease. It really was something big. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.